Chapter 201 Awakening Suddenly. He didn't know how long Mugue had been crying. Hanishu gently wiped away his tears and said, "Let me go back." Mugue held his hand silently, not wanting to let go. Hanishu said gently, "I will always be by your side. But I don't want to see you continue to get hurt. Be obedient." Mugue hesitated for a long time, and finally nodded. He looked up at Hanishu getting off the ground again. Just as he said, he was always by his side. Mugue got up from the ground. He glanced at the other ghosts. Those former companions had accompanied him for so long. But he wanted to cut off ties with them. This was the punishment for his selfishness. Mugue gave them a calm and relieved smile. That smile contained the tiredness and fragility that could not be concealed. But that was the real him. Mugue turned around and opened the door. Yi Hui, Yen Siji, Feng Boming, Qing Jian, Ingjiu, Jin Imo, Xiao Qiuqian, Wang Dongqing, Lei Chen. They almost surrounded him at the same time. Mugue didn't say anything to them, but went to the ward where Yan Xinxia was now. There were also many people guarding inside and outside the room. Mugue sat by the bed, holding his hand, waiting for him to wake up. The others looked at each other, but no one dared to speak. Mugue's condition seemed a little bit wrong. And the situation in the room just now was also wrong. But it didn't seem to be in a bad direction. No matter what they guessed in their hearts. They were very curious about what Yan Xinxiu said that made Mugue's attitude change so much. They didn't have to wait long before the wave images representing Yan Xinxiu's mental and heart activity began to change. Under Xiao Qiuqian's ability, Yan Xinxiu's physical injuries had been completely healed. And the remaining parts had not left too many problems after the doctor's treatment. Although it was a little late. Waking up now was expected. Yan Xinxiu opened his eyes under the gaze of everyone. The first person he saw was Mugue. Mugue smiled at him. Yan Xinxiu seemed to be still in a fuzzy state. "Mugue, you're okay." Mugue trembled and pulled the corner of his mouth. "Brother. Long time no see." "Everyone." Yan Xinxiu stared at him blankly. Pursed his lips half a beat late. He raised his hand to cover his eyes. Tears slid down his face. Although they had heard some of what happened in the ward where Mugue was before, they couldn't hear the words clearly because of the crying tone. So they didn't understand what happened. Now, Mugue made it clear what the relationship between the two of them was. Yan Xinxiu lay there and let the tears fall from his temples. After a while, he recovered and stood up and hugged Mugue. Mugue whispered, "I have been looking for you. Even if I can't find you, I never give up looking. Everything is my fault. I never hate you. I just want to know if you are safe. You have worked hard all these years." Yan Xinxiu closed his eyes painfully. "I am too timid. You should blame me." Mugue's eyes are still red. He slightly raised the corners of his mouth and whispered, "Then what should I say, liar?" Yan Xinxiu bit his lip. "I'm sorry. I broke my promise." "Mugue, I forgive you." Yan Xinxiu opened her eyes and looked at him. "Mugue, just like you forgive me." Yan Xinxiu was bitter, and tears were pouring down her cheeks. He just hated himself for not recognizing him earlier. When the two of them calmed down a little, Yi Hui spoke, "You too. I'm really sorry to interrupt this touching moment of your reunion. But you have to explain to us what happened. Right?" He deliberately used a teasing tone to adjust the sad atmosphere. Jin Mo's eyes moved back and forth between them. "Uncle? Yan Xinxiu turned out to be your brother?" Yen Siji asked. "Is it related to your past? Including the time they lived together?" Mugue never revealed his previous family affairs. He intuitively felt that it was related to that time. Mugue nodded. He hesitated for a moment, looked at Yan Xinxiu, and he also nodded in agreement. Mugue looked at Hanishu next to him, and he smiled encouragingly in return. Mugue looked at his companions in this life. There were many unfamiliar faces in the previous times, but they were all trustworthy people. He felt very lucky. "Yi Hui, are you going to start talking?" "Wait a minute." He turned on his watch and connected to Song Jianqing's communicator. "Gu Shu is awake too?" "It's great. Let's listen together." He directly opened the holographic communication video. Mugue. However, what needs to be said still needs to be said. It is not easy to reveal the scars of the past. But these people gave him the courage to speak out. Mugue slowly picked out the key points of his past and told them, omitting all the details and only outlining the general events. He is not a good storyteller. But in these simple words, anyone with feelings can associate the hardship and sadness of that period. Feng Boming and Yan Siji's eyes turned red when they heard it. Everyone fell into silence. Mugue, these are all things that happened for the first time. Things that happened before the disaster. Our past stories. Yan Xinxiu was trembling with fear and asked, "Why, you know everything." Qin Jian pointed to Han Yishu, who was a ghost. "He gave you the memory." Mugue, "Yes." He continued, "But the focus is not on my matter, but on the next 7 times. Yihui, the next 7 times? Mugue, you should have known my ability. But this is not my first return, but the 7th return." Mugue also only told them the key events. Everyone was so shocked that they were speechless. Their eyes towards Han Yishu changed at that moment. This can explain the sudden change in Mugue's attitude. But they could never guess that the truth was so shocking. After Mugue finished speaking, when others were still trapped in their emotions and unable to extricate themselves, Yihui said, "So, only your 8th life entered the body of the current Mugue?" Mugue, "Yes." Yihui smiled. "It seems that it will take a lot of effort to review the situation." Mugue knew that he had come to the same conclusion as him, and nodded, "Yes." Jin Mo sniffed. Ingjiu handed him a tissue, and he asked, "What are you talking about?" Qin Jian had mixed feelings. "I didn't expect there would be such a thing." But he still had doubts. "Then why did you kill me, I mean, the me in your first round?" Although he might have become a little unkind in that situation and had reasons to be hated, Han Yishu's temperament was not so impulsive, and there was no benefit in killing him. And it was with this opportunity that Mugue broke her trust in him. Yihui, "Yes. It is time to start from this point. It is obvious that Yan Xinxiu, oh sorry. Is it better to call her Han?" Han Yishu shook his head indifferently. "It doesn't matter." Mugue winked at Yihui. Yihui continued, "Han did not kill Qin Jian at that time. It should be said that he did not kill Qin Jian on his own initiative, but was controlled by brainwashing. So what Mugue saw in the surveillance was that he did it himself. Han has no memory of that period at all. This is obviously after being manipulated to kill someone. He was ordered to delete his memory. Qin Jian, who was killed several times, said. The others listened carefully and nodded. Mugue, this means Feng Yan was in the monitoring room at that time. Wang Dongqing's eyes were full of interest. He put his hand on his chin and said, his ability is not activated through line of sight or physical contact, but can be activated within a certain distance. This is possible because everyone's eyes were focused on Mugue. No one noticed that Wang Dongqing had cold sweat dripping down his cheeks. Ruby kept wiping his sweat on his shoulders. Ingjiu asked, who are usually in the monitoring room? Qin Jian, usually. They are information technology personnel with a relatively high confidentiality level, who take notes and listen to the monitoring. But there are also auxiliary technical personnel, who are mainly responsible for serving tea and water to the people in front, passing on messages and notifications, and reminding people outside to go in for identification. They usually sit at the back. There is no main responsibility, but someone must do odd jobs for others. Such people are much more relaxed in the inspection when they join the job. Wang Dongqing, the most suitable position for taking advantage of loopholes. No one will pay attention to such a tiny existence. Despite this, such people still have many opportunities to come into contact with Qin Jian. Even so, Feng Yan has hidden his brainwashing ability for so long, right under their noses. Feng Yan should have known his ability a long time ago. But why did he hide it for so long? He obviously had many opportunities to brainwash Qin Jian, or anyone else. Yihui was thinking and asking questions, asking himself, and also throwing his thoughts to others. Mugue, he really took action when my brother went to find Qin Jian to identify his ability. At that time, Hani may have made up his mind to fight side by side with Mugue. So he went there. But he didn't expect to see Qin Jian's memory, and an accident happened. Wang Dongqing, he needs this ability of memory. Why? The ability of brainwashing is not better than memory, he said halfway, and showed a look of realization. Mugue and Yihui looked at each other and figured it out at the same time, the price. But soon, they all frowned. Mo, what? What? Speak up. I can't keep up with your train of thought. Feng Bo Ming. I think they mean that the price of the ability of brainwashing is related to memory. Yan Siji, for example, loss of memory. Mo opened his mouth. Qin Jian, but even if he used Yan Xinxiu to recover his memory and offset the cost of the brainwashing ability, every time he returned, he remembered everything. How did he do that? This was also the point of doubt that made them frown. Yan Xinqiu remembered what they said, and he said, I once tried to rewrite his memory, but his memory had been locked. But I was not brainwashed by him this time. And I don't have this memory. Qingjian, memory lock. Speaking of which, he had not properly identified Yan Xinqiu's ability information. So he focused his attention on Yan Xinqiu. Indeed, there is no abnormal brainwashing state, and there is no mark of memory loss. Absolute. Your memory lock is absolute? Mugue, this means he was not put in the memory lock this time. Ihue, if the effect of this memory lock can last until every return, and will not disappear due to the reversal of time and space, then it can be explained? Hanishi nodded. Do you remember what I told you? I am the best proof. When other ghosts and Mugue himself could not remember every memory of their past return, Hanishi was the only one who remembered it. This was because he was a capable person himself, and also because he unconsciously locked his memory for the first time. Mugue also told him about his situation. Ihui looked at Yan Xinqiu. Then why can't he do it? If this is true, Yan Xinqiu in reality should also keep the memory of every return. But he didn't. Mugue thought for a moment and said his own speculation, delete memory. Brother can feel the sense of disobedience of the memory deletion fragment is only that one. It does not mean that there is only that one. Ihui nodded and understood. Looking at the confused faces around him, he smiled and said, then let's sort it out from the beginning. First of all, in the first round, Han took the initiative to find Qingjian to identify his ability. He wanted to rewrite Qingjian's memory, and at the same time, he saw Qingjian's memory. He did not want to kill him, but just wanted to stop him. But at this time Feng Yan in the monitoring room knew his ability, so he started to act. He brainwashed the people around him so that they could not stop him from doing things, and then brainwashed Han, who had finished rewriting his memory, and let him kill Qingjian. Then he walked out, dealt with the people outside, let Han come out, ordered him to tell the detailed information of his ability, and put a memory lock on himself, and then ordered Han to delete his own brainwashing and murder memories, and unlock Han's own memory lock. Memory locks require the consent of both the person who placed the memory lock and the person who was locked in the memory lock. In Han's case, he is a unity of the two. As long as he is brainwashed, Feng Yan has the final say on whether to lock or unlock the memory lock, even if they are different people. As long as both are brainwashed, it can be done. Then he let Han go and helped him escape to Jiangzhou. I don't know whether he lifted the brainwashing after that, but based on his subsequent actions, he should not have used the brainwashing ability to give orders again. It's just that from the moment Qingjian died, there was no one who could identify whether someone was brainwashed, and the cost of brainwashing ability no longer needed to be considered. Qingjian, but according to him, Feng Yan hasn't appeared since the first round? He obviously has that ability. He can do whatever he wants. Ihui looked at Mugue and raised his lips. He is waiting. Waiting for a chance to start over. What? Many people blurted out. As I just said, since Han has read Qingjian's memory, he must know the information about Mugue's ability. And he also knows that he can bring about the effect of reversing time and space, as well as the memory of the prophet. Feng Yan will definitely ask these questions after brainwashing Han, or let him hand over his memory directly to him. He knew that the world would be destroyed, and that Mugue's death would make the world return to the past. But at this time, he was still unsure. So he waited, waiting to see why the world was destroyed, and whether the world would return to the past. He stopped talking, but they all knew the following sentence. Feng Yan waited. Before that, he had been patiently waiting, dormant, waiting for the memory ability person who saw the cost of his brainwashing ability, and then waiting for the world to reverse time and space. Every choice he made was amazingly accurate. He was like an extremely clever hunter, staring at the prey and holding his breath, waiting until he was 100% sure. And before that, he would never act rashly. Hanishu suddenly said, I didn't give him the memory. He never reads other people's memories. If he reads my memory, this rescue will definitely fail. Mugue remembered his attitude when they confronted Feng Yan before. If Feng Yan had read Yan Xinqiu's memory in the previous few times, he would not let Yan Xinqiu in this life read his memory, because Yan Xinqiu would definitely stand on Mugue's side after reading Mugue's own memory. Yan Xinqiu probably thought that the owner of this body had killed him, so he showed hatred, and Feng Yan took advantage of this. In fact, It was a coincidence that the self who entered the body happened to be him. Mugui told everyone about this. Ihui, this is also important information that helps analyze him. So, according to what you said, it is confirmed that Feng Yin took action in the 2nd to 7th rounds? Mugui nodded. I think he should be trying. He is just like us. He was not clear about my ability at the beginning. So he tried again and again. Qing Jian was horrified. Does trying mean trying to kill Mugui again and again? And his methods are more cruel each time. This kind of person is too scary. Ihui, then our previous analysis is correct. He did this to go back to the past. Wang Dongqing's eyes lit up slightly. He tried so many times, and should know that the time will be advanced by 3 hours each time. He felt that it was too slow. So he went to find other methods. Feng Boing, other methods? Jin Mo, could it be that, Python? Hanishu nodded, connecting the 7th incident with the present. It can be seen very clearly that Captain Jin caught a complete two-headed rock python. And Qing Jian can also see the complete ability information. So he aimed at the mutant rock python from the beginning this time. As for Mugui and the others, he probably thought he could handle them at any time. So he just left them alone. Who would have thought that Mugui could just take this thing away? Qing Jian looked at him with a complicated expression. Mugui suddenly seemed to think of something, and turned to Yin Xinxiu. He looked at his eyes and said, Uncle Lin and Aunt Wan are still here, and they are all working in the public security department. Mugui breathed a sigh of relief. There were too many things to worry about, and he forgot about their situation for a while. However, after entering college, they did not have much contact. Perhaps they deliberately alienated each other. After all, they all felt that they should not interfere too much in the life of an ordinary person like him. In fact, when he entered the Beijing base, he also thought of Du Hyun and Su Xianghua. After looking up the list, he found that they had joined other teams. He did not interfere with them too much, because this was the best arrangement at the moment. Among the few people, Xiao Qiutian and Lei Chen narrowed their eyes and listened in confusion, but still pretended to listen carefully. While Ingjiu was thinking silently, Wang Dongqing pulled a chair over, leaned his chin on the back of the chair, and asked another question. So why did you enter this body in the 8th round? Logically speaking, you should return to your original body. The 8th round is the one with the biggest changes, isn't it? Mugui also thought of this, and he was recalling what happened before that. Soon, he moved his eyes to the holographic screen. To be precise, to Gu Shu's face. Gu Shu certainly still remembered what happened that day, because he and Mugui collided, and his clothes were soiled. He was about to go to class, so he hurriedly drove back to change clothes, which indirectly led to the car accident. Is it my fault? Mugui shook her head and smiled. No. I should thank you. You saved me and so many people. Gu Shu? He thought it was a very strange coincidence at the beginning. Wang Dongqing. Indeed, two people with the same name and surname who have never met each other collided with each other in a car accident at the same time. The probability of this happening is less than 1 in 100 million. Mugui, you said before that you came from another world. At this point, he finally began to really consider this possibility. So Gu Shu told him again about his conversation and deal with the god of time and space. And this time, he didn't care whether the god of time and space agreed or not. Everyone's faces were full of excitement, as if they were listening to a fairy tale book. In fact, he had said this before, but at that time, they were still half believing and half doubting because of their trust in him. Gu Shu pouted his lips in grievance. What's going on? Just now. It was clearly about rebirth and return. And it was so clear. But I can't believe the other world here? Feng Boming was the first one among them to believe his story. Then the god of time and space sent you here for a purpose. Did he tell you what kind of disaster would happen? Gu Shu. He ran away before he finished talking every time. I repeated everything I knew to you word for word. My memory cannot be wrong. But he suddenly thought of the memory that was sealed by the god of time and space before, and asked Qing Jian to verify it for him again before he felt relieved. Mugui, did the so-called god tell me how to contact him? Gu Shu, he possessed Song twice, and I sent him messages through this tablet. But it was one-sided. I couldn't contact him actively, and I didn't know if he was watching this place. It was too much. He brought me here on his own. Mugui comforted him a few words. But as she thought about it, she couldn't help laughing. It's not like God's help. But there really is a God standing by them to help them. Is this a miracle? In order to save this world, God introduced people from other worlds as variables, like dominoes, and everything chained together led to the current result. If God didn't say anything now, it means that they should be on the right path. But this made him realize that even God needs to be adjusted in this way. The path they take and the actions they take will indeed change their fate. He would not think that this was the arrangement of fate. Even if it was, God and fate were on their side. He would gladly accept it and make good use of this huge advantage. Muguet looked at Gu Shu and said to him apologetically, I said before that I could give you a chance to go back. Gu Shu, I know I can't go back, but at least I have a chance to see them again. Which is good enough, you know? I also have a brother, he is my biological brother. So when I see you reunited, I really envy you. He lowered his head. Song Jiansheng put his arm around his shoulder. Feng Boming smiled and comforted him. If you can't go back to your home over there, it doesn't mean you will forget them. And they won't forget you either. And everyone here can become your family. Your brothers and sisters. Your younger brothers and sisters. You are not alone. We will always be with you at any time. No matter how unrealistic it is. We will always accompany you to find a way to go home. Okay? Gu Shu raised his head and saw everyone looking at him with an expression of this as natural. Tears welled up in his eyes. And soon, he responded with a cheerful voice, Okay. Muguet also smiled. If there were always people around him who were full of enthusiasm, vitality and hope, then he would unconsciously be infected with these beautiful things. What he wanted to see was that these children would never lose such abilities. In this life, through their efforts, they did it. Gu Shu suddenly stood up. I don't want to be here. I want to go over and talk with you. Even if I have to lie on the hospital bed. I want to be in the same room with you. Song Jiansheng, but the doctor said you need to rest for a while. Gu Shu, the doctor lied to you. I'm well a long time ago. He pressed Song Jiansheng's shoulder and teleported over. As soon as he landed, several people grabbed him and pulled him hard. And the originally dull atmosphere was swept away. Hanishu said beside Muguet, if one person can't find a solution, everyone can do it together. You have always done well. Muguet, they have done well too. Yihui leaned against the window with his arms crossed. Now that everyone is almost here, we should discuss how to solve this problem. Bang! Ding ding ding! Along with the bang came a sharp alarm. Hey! What's going on? Lei Chen squatted down and looked at Dong Qing's body, and was frightened. Ruby was running around beside him anxiously. But she was very quiet and had muted it. The alarm came from his watch. The others immediately changed their faces and gathered around. Lei Chen put him on his shoulder. Gu Shu and the guards outside ran to call a doctor. Muguet lifted his chin to observe and found that his face was hot, but not obviously red, and his whole body was covered with cold sweat. Qing Jian, why did you suddenly have a fever? Muguet, no. This is a manifestation of awakening ability. Send him to the cooling chamber immediately. They have all tasted the taste of awakening ability. The awakening of the unprepared zero sequence is purely based on luck. If you survive it, you will be a superpower. And if you can't survive it, you will become a pool of blood and flesh. However, in later research, it was discovered that medical and physical control methods could also assist awakened people and help them increase their chances of surviving the awakening. After 10 years, the mortality rate of awakening with artificially controllable 1-order superpowers was much lower, and the mortality rate of 0-order superpowers born from the mother's womb was even lower. They also did not expect that Wang Dongqing would awaken his ability at this point in time. Chapter 202 New Name. The awakening time of the 1 sequence ability is generally longer than that of the 0 sequence, including those who use seeds to awaken. When Wang Dongqing was sent to the cooling chamber, his body temperature soared to 40 degrees Celsius. They watched him for several hours. Qing Jian kept a close eye on him. Because of his situation, they could only put other things on hold for the time being. Jin Mo, I'm a little curious about what ability he will awaken. Ingio, I guess it's an ability related to electronic mechanical intelligence. After all, he is very good at this kind of thing. Xiao Qiutian, it has nothing to do with what someone is good at. I am not good at curing diseases. Ingio, that's right. I am not good at reversal either. Yin Siji, even if he has no ability, he has helped us a lot. Lei Chen, I just hope it is not a supernatural power with a heavy price. Feng Boming, he will definitely get through it. Muguet saw that Yihui was lost in thought and asked him, what's wrong? Yihui, Xiao Baiji's ability has become VG level. Mugui, yeah. I just found out. Yihui suddenly turned to Qin Jian and said, take a look at our abilities. Have there been any changes? Qin Jian had appraised them many times before, but he had only seen the details of their abilities once. The detailed information of abilities, except for the changes that may occur after being strengthened by Mugui and reversed by Ingqiu, is generally fixed. But Qin Jian didn't ask anything else. Qin Jian, okay. I'll try. He looked at them one by one, slowly revealing a look of surprise. Yihui, are there really any changes? Qin Jian, yes. Some people's abilities have changed slightly. But don't worry. They are all changing for the better. Yan Sizi's mental burden from using the black sword has been reduced. Feng Boying's light generation will increase in a dark environment. Ingqiu's ability entity no longer needs direct contact. And a slightly close contact can also reverse his ability. Jin Mo's controllable shadow range has increased. And the number of shadows that can be accumulated and controlled has increased. Gu Shu's ability activation and switching time has been shortened. Xiao Qiutian, Lei Chen, and Song Jianqing's abilities have not changed much. Qin Jian asked Yihui, how did you know? Yihui raised his eyebrows and smiled. I have a guess. Mugui's ability is to strengthen everything, including supernatural powers. But it doesn't say that the strengthening is limited to when he actively uses supernatural powers. Qin Jian, huh? He didn't understand. Yihui, what if just staying by his side can subtly strengthen and grow supernatural powers? Mugui. Qin Jian, this is also possible? But looking at the current situation, this is indeed a possible explanation. But normal people shouldn't think of it. Right? This kind of thing. Yihui, as for those who haven't changed, either their abilities have already become strong enough, or they haven't been exposed enough, or the time has not come yet. This kind of change seems to be permanent. Just like AI Buiji's ability suddenly evolved to VG level. You should have strengthened him the most times. Right? Mugui also pondered for a moment, and agreed with his idea. Just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted by Yihui. Yihui, I'm not saying this to ask you to frequently strengthen others. It's too much of a burden on you. Don't even think about it. Mugui. I didn't. Yihui smiled. Stop lying. Qin Jian, it's good to know this. Ingqiu came over and said, so? Mugui is equivalent to a human amplifier. As long as we stay with him, we will become stronger. Yihui, generally speaking, the stronger the ability, the slower the growth. Just like leveling up in a game. You all have very high-level abilities. It takes a long time to change. However, the increase in low-level abilities may be very significant. Xiao Baiji is an example. Mugui suddenly had a bad feeling. Yihui said nothing more, just smiled and didn't continue. He wasn't such a devil to order Mugui to do anything, especially after hearing about Mugui's previous experience. 5 hours later, it was almost dark, and Wang Dongqing's condition finally stabilized. At a certain moment, the hatch opened. Wang Dongqing opened his eyes, took off the mask himself, and put the straw in his mouth to replenish water. He saw so many people staring at him. He was not used to it but smiled back immediately. Seeing that he was in good spirits, everyone was relieved. His awakening process was safe and sound. Qin Jian immediately ran over and stared at him up and down. After seeing him, his eyes widened. But he still asked him, does your ability need to be kept secret? Wang Dongqing smiled meaningfully. You must know. So isn't it the same whether my ability information is kept secret or not? Qin Jian, you have a really good personality. Then I said, turning stillness into movement. This is your ability. VG level. First sequence. According to the current classification, it should be a special type. The explanation says that it makes inanimate dead things alive and gives them life. Wang Dongqing's eyes flashed. That's all? Mugui rarely saw him so excited. Qin Jian, the way to use your ability is to tap the object twice to say wake up. Tap once to say sleep. The price is that these things that come to life may not be under your control. And their personalities are different. And there are no restrictions on quantity, volume, time, etc. Right? Feng Boming, this ability is really interesting. Ingqiu, why don't you just find something to try it on? Wang Dongqing waved. Ruby, come here. Ruby had been waiting for him to say this, and jumped into his arms from the side of the cabin. Wang Dongqing cancelled his mute setting, and Ruby cursed, you bastard. Idiot! Idiot! Then she kept hitting his head with her claws. Wang Dongqing pressed him into his arms and squeezed. Okay. I know you are worried about me. He patted Ruby on the head twice and said, wake up. Ruby raised her eyebrows very humanely and said, what? Wang Dongqing lifted him up. This means you have life. Ruby tilted her head. Qing Jian. It doesn't seem to make any difference? Wang Dongqing, Ruby. Shizun. Ruby slapped him on the forehead. Get lost. Then she broke free from his hand, climbed to the top of his head, occupied his head, and pulled his hair. Wang Dongqing was still laughing. Look. It worked. Subtle. Everyone showed the same expression in their eyes. But Mugue could see that Wang Dongqing was really happy. Wang Dongqing patted the cooling cabin again. A pair of sticker-like eyes suddenly appeared above the fuselage of the cooling cabin. And then, they heard a gentle and kind voice. The body temperature has dropped. Come out. And recover your health. Lei Chen, damn it. Wang Dongqing jumped out and patted the chairs, tables, water cups, and even the shabby fortune cat on the table that he picked up from some garbage dump. The chairs and tables also grew eyes and mouths. But they said nothing and ran away in the eyes of everyone. The glass cup was busy trying not to fall off, looking panicked and desperately calling for help. The lucky cat stretched its back, carrying a money bag and a scroll with the words "Wish you a prosperous life" on it, and jumped out of the window with a jingle. Feng Boming was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. You have to catch them all back. So everyone helped him catch these things back together, and Wang Dongqing patted them to sleep. And the items returned to their original state. He said to them contentedly, we're done. Let's go. They found a soundproof meeting room. And of course, there were still people guarding outside. Qing Jian sat down and complained, meetings. I hate meetings. Another meeting. Yihui smiled. You have fewer meetings than I do. And most of the meetings after the disaster are about discussing real things. Meetings in peacetime are a waste of time. Qing Jian, I understand. Just like when some professors with no real knowledge come to the school to give lectures. We have to attend, or we won't get enough credits. Mugue, then let's try to talk less nonsense. Wang Dongqing brought up the holographic simulation screen and presented it to everyone. Ruby recorded the appearance of all the enemies who appeared at that time, matched their abilities, names, and faces one by one, and collected all the available information. Feng Yin, a brainwasher Fuxia, a soul lamp, whose ability is questionable. Yen Lu, the former captain of the 6th team, a space user, Zhang Weizhen, an invisible user, who can even hide his existence through physical contact, Wang Qinghua, a tracking sniper, Zhang Yi, a vacuum seal user, Duan Duo, a leopard user, Tai Shanshan, a replacement injury user, Tu Yin, a God's Eye user, is currently detained in the base to remove brainwashing, Fang Qirong, a lava user, Wu Yuanyuan, a slow user, Min Xian, an illusion user, Feng Qing, a space replacement transfer user. These 4 people have been removed from brainwashing and are also receiving psychological treatment. These are the currently known people who are controlled by him. It is estimated that he can at least brainwash and control more than 10 people with strong abilities at the same time. The exact number is unknown. Qing Jian also failed to see the ability information of Feng Yan's people from the fierce battle. Mugue crossed his fingers and placed them on the table. Not only these people. He knows the information of many people with abilities, and can easily control them, including the various people with special abilities gathered in the capital base. It is easy for him to take a few away quietly. Yihui, so we can't give him time to continue to strengthen his strength. Through the previous rescue operation, Feng Yan should also know that their overall strength is very strong. Judging from his previous 7 actions, he is very cautious. If he fails to kill in one shot, he will change his strategy. Damn thing. It's really good at hiding. Lei Chen angrily punched the table. But fortunately, he controlled the strength and didn't leave any marks. Mugue used himself as bait to provide them with an opportunity to contact. Unfortunately, they failed to kill the other party in one go. The other party was caught off guard and stabbed. Next time, they will definitely take precautions, making it even more difficult to succeed. Yihui, well, the ability to hide existence is still too buggy. As long as he keeps hiding his existence, we can't catch his trace at all. Mugue asked, have you contacted Feng Shidong? Yihui, I'll ask him now. He made a phone call and quickly shook his head and said, the anchor point disappeared. Mugue, it didn't really disappear, but disappeared temporarily. The anchor point is like this. And the hidden existence is not really completely disappeared. But it is no longer recognized and touched by anything. Qing Jian interrupted, after being strengthened. I can see a little bit. Similar to a transparent outline. Really only a little bit. But I can see it. Mugui, what about the distance? Qing Jian, this. I saw it through the screen. Mugui thought for a while, and shook his head. The feasibility is too low. We still can't lock his position. Unless we can find a way to narrow his position to a range. Ingjiu raised his hand at this time. Why not try the same trick again? Seduce him out again. Jin Mo, ha ha ha, what do you mean by seduce? Xiao Qiutian's face was ashen. He can't be bait anymore. Gu Shu shook his head with lingering fear. No. No. No one can be bait. Yi Hui, that's a way. But it shouldn't be possible to be fooled again. Ingjiu looked at Mugui and said seriously, you should know the ability of the captain of the second team Wei Su. Transformation. He can perfectly transform himself or others into the appearance of others or an object. What Feng Yan wants most now is Qing Qian's ability. The snake in his illustrations. So as long as he... Mugui knew what she wanted to say. So he interrupted her. That would put him in danger. Everyone looked at him in unison. Those narrowed eyes seemed to say, you are the one who has no right to say this. Mugui's voice suddenly became smaller, and soon fell silent. Ingjiu, it is impossible to fight such an enemy without being in danger. Everyone present is in danger of being targeted. So what difference does this make? And he is also one of the captains. With his sense of responsibility. He will not refuse. Yan Xinxiu, who had not spoken since she came in, suddenly said, what if the other party has the ability to identify the essence of the superpower? Yi Hui asked, what do you mean? Yan Xinxiu lowered her eyes, and did not look at the others. The one who found the invisible person was the woman who used the soul lamp. Fuxia. Even if the existence is hidden, she can still clearly see where the other party exists. She has such a skill. Even if you transform into another person, with a perfect appearance, and can even deceive the identification of superpowers. But the essence is still a different person. I think she can see it. She can see the shape and color of the human soul. Qing Jian's mouth was dry. And he swallowed his saliva, that is to say, if it's not the real person, no matter what disguise he made, she can see it at a glance? Yan Xinxiu, yes. So this way is also blocked. The group of people fell into silence. And everyone was seriously thinking about other methods. Mugui put all the ability information databases of both sides in front of him. And suddenly, he noticed a person. When he raised his head suddenly, Yi Hui's eyes happened to meet his. The corners of their mouths curled up at the same time. Amazing synchronization. Phone bombing, Mugui? Yi Hui? What did you two think of? Yi Hui broadcast the communication and called Shueyue directly. It's me. Is Feng Qing with you? Mugui asked Qing Jian. You also identified Feng Qing's ability. Right. Qing Jian, yes? What happened to her? Mugui, her ability is to replace any two objects at will, including people. The replacement process is like this. By touching to mark a person or object, and then marking the other replacement object accordingly, she can instantly replace different spaces at will. All objects that have been touched and marked can be replaced with each other. So how long does this last for the object or person that has touched the mark? What about the replacement distance? Qing Jian opened his mouth wide. If it is not explained in the ability explanation, it is generally believed that there is no specific limit. Before Feng Yan got Yin Lu, Feng Qing had been using this ability to move him around. So he must have marked him. As for whether this mark still exists now, it is exactly what they want to confirm. Yi Hui released Shueyu's voice over there. What's going on here? Yi Hui, ask her if she remembers Feng Yan's mark. Shueyu, I'm afraid that won't work. Feng Yan left something behind when he brainwashed her. When she woke up, she was like Min Xian, unable to remember what happened before. Yi Hui glanced at Yan Xinxiu. Yan Xinxiu whispered, I have her memory. The memory he deleted could not be directly restored. But when he deleted the memory, he must have read it once and remembered it at that time. Shueyue, do you need her? Yi Hui, yes. Shueyue, then I will take charge and bring her to your place. Yi Hui, will she cooperate? Shueyue, very cooperative. She really wants to help. Not long after, Shueyue came with Feng Qing. Yan Xinxiu walked over and whispered to her, sorry. I can only give you what I saw. But the content should not be very good. You have to be prepared. You can also choose not to read it. I will give you the mark directly. So you can also help us. Feng Qing gritted her teeth. It doesn't matter. I want to know what I did during that time. Or rather, what I did under control. She didn't want to be so confused. Yan Xinqiu put her hand on the girl's forehead. And after a moment, she took it back. Feng Qing stared and squatted down. Xue Yue quickly put her hands on her temples and tried to comfort her. Feng Qing still stood up very firmly, and her lips were deeply bitten by herself. Yi Hui, do you still remember the mark of Feng Yan? Feng Qing said in a hateful voice. I remember. Of course I remember. Yi Hui, can you do it? Replace? Feng Qing, yes. No matter where. She paused and added, if he has physical contact with other people, then those people will also be replaced. Objects connect objects. People connect people. This is the implicit limitation of her ability. Yi Hui, what about different spaces? Feng Qing, space? Isn't it just? Mu Gui smiled slightly and directly pointed out the 3 words, Taoyuan realm. Feng Qing still didn't understand what they were talking about. Feng Boming also asked curiously, why? Yi Hui, since he doesn't take the initiative to stand up, we will just catch him and deal with him in Taoyuan realm. Then the only problem left is hiding. But the space is limited, so it should be easy to find them. Mu Gui and Yi Hui looked at each other and smiled knowingly. He said, this is also easy to solve. Yi Hui and Mu Gui told the others the plan in detail and discussed the details of the action. When Jin Mo finished, he pulled Mu Gui and asked again, is it that simple? Mu Gui smiled calmly and gave him a positive answer, yes. It's that simple. Han Yishu looked at Mu Gui's profile and smiled bitterly. He never thought that Mu Gui was lucky and relaxed to reach this point, because he knew better than anyone how much suffering he had gone through to reach this point. He knew the ending early on. He knew that this battle would eventually reach a sad end. He was unwilling to let him struggle. He wanted to lead everyone out of the quagmire of fate. Wouldn't it be better to take it easy? Do you like to fall into difficult death situations again and again? I hate that. I don't want to work hard either. Everything I do is to be able to finish it all easily and retire early. This is not a game. There is no need for challenge. I don't want any accidents to happen. I want that person to die without a burial place. I want everyone to survive well. And no one should die. In his many reincarnations, he had the most experience with death, whether it was someone else's or his own. Followed by despair. He had had enough. And was fed up. So many times. Even if there was complete despair in front of everyone. And he was a weak person like dust. He stood in front, stubbornly fighting against despair without looking back. Later he realized that if one person couldn't do it, then he had to find more people and fight together with everyone, so that he would have more power to defeat despair. That's what he thought. And he did it. If he died completely the first time he failed, it would be fine. If there was a second time, he would continue to do it until he could no longer struggle. He would do it again and again. But that didn't mean he was happy with it. If it was easy to do it, who would want to do it again so many times? Mu Gui noticed one thing. Since he talked about his 7 returns, no one among them had ever considered the possibility of Mu Gui's rebirth, without considering whether there were better ways in the past. This is the last time. Every time. He treats it as the last time. There is no chance to come back. This time must succeed. He will make it a reality. Jin Mo feels that his uncle now is familiar. Just like when he was in Jincheng. His eyes are burning with the flame of life. Jin Mo also smiled. Set a flag before the war? Mu Gui, as long as it succeeds. It is not. Jin Mo and Mu Gui walked out side by side. Jin Mo wanted to say something to him. But suddenly his expression changed slightly. The adult Jin Mo appeared. He suddenly said to Mu Gui, do you know what your name means? Mu Gui. I don't know. His biological parents probably randomly generated names and picked a random name. But he knew that Jin Mo was talking about his uncle. I once heard my mother say that I accidentally read your name as Rose. And then my mother laughed. Jin Mo's mother is Mu Mei. Do you know why my sister and I were named Rose? My mother, your grandmother, likes roses. Although she likes beautiful things, she hates beautiful but fragile things. She said that the reason why roses bloom so beautifully is because their stems are covered with hard thorns, which can prevent animals from attacking them and protect themselves. She prefers such strong and beautiful things. Mu Gui. Jin Mo, since you are using this body now, you should treat it well and don't destroy it casually or cherish it. Otherwise, my mom, my dad, and my grandparents will curse you. Mugui laughed. Is he expressing his concern in his own unique way? GMO, also. You are also suitable for this name. Mugui was stunned. But in a blink of an eye, GMO appeared again. And he pulled his face. Oh. Say more. I want to hear it too. Hanishi whispered in Mugui's ear at this time. I once went to see that woman with my dad. When she was in a good mental state. She asked about your situation. She only said one sentence. Do you want to hear it? Mugui. What did she say? She gave you this name because she had a bottle of withered roses next to her when she gave birth to you. I guess she gave you this name because she hoped you would bloom. What happened afterwards was absolutely unforgivable. But he definitely shouldn't have been born with hatred. Mugui smiled faintly. You could explain it any way you want. Hanishu put his hands on his shoulders. Why not explain it in a positive way? A rose that grows with difficulty in a narrow crevice. Once bloomed. Once withered. And is full of vitality. Watered by love. And blooms a new life. Just like when he first heard the name. He felt that it was very suitable for him, and was a good name. Yeah. Mugui put his hand on his shoulder and whispered. He didn't care what the woman thought about the name. But he really hated the name given by his biological parents, and thought about changing it. But after Hanishu explained it like this, he thought it was good, just as if it was not given by his biological parents, but a precious meaning and new name given to him by his real family. At the same time, it carries the hope of the original owner's family, and continues to use it. GMO, uncle? Mugui messed up his hair. Go back. Mugui turned around and Yen Shinshio stood there, waiting for him. Chapter 203 Not So Simple. Ai Chinchien touched the bubble wall. It was a bubble so narrow that he, a child, could only stretch his arms and legs. Ai Buiji pushed the bubble around him in circles. Laughing happily, Ai Chinchien looked at Mugui. Mugui said to the two of them, stay in there for a while. It will be over soon. Ai Chinchien knew that this was a measure to protect them. Ai Buiji ran to them. Brother Mugui, are you going to fight the big boss? Mugui, yes. Ai Chinchien, is it difficult? Mugui narrowed his eyes and smiled. No. It's very easy. Ai Buiji asked curiously, fighting the big boss. But is it very easy? Mugui, maybe it's because the most difficult part has been passed. And the rest is the final blow. In short, we can't fail. And the god of luck is on our side this time. Ai Chinchien also laughed. Then we will wait for your good news here. Mugui turned around. And Yinkianju pointed to the white vortex passage. Mugui stepped in. The scent of peach blossoms filled his face. And his companions were already standing in the forest waiting for him. In this space, half of the year is spring. Yinkianju said to him, everyone has moved out. He was talking about the people who originally lived in this space. They planned to capture Fengyan in this space, so they couldn't involve other people. The peach blossom forest deliberately cleared a large open space. And in the center of the crowd, on the ground, a king chess piece was placed on the grass. Yin-Shinju raised her hand and waved it gently. Peach blossom fairies quietly appeared on the many branches of the peach blossom trees surrounding them. They had charming smiles on their faces and stood barefoot on the branches, light as a feather. They stretched out their hands, and the peach blossom petals behind them danced gracefully, gathering in the air and weaving a piece of light pink translucent silk. Ingjio walked forward, and the silk slowly fell on her arm. She gently stroked the silk. After a while, the silk flew into the sky again and floated about 2 meters above the ground. Ingjio retreated, while Wang Dongqing, Gu Shu, and Song Jianxing took 2 steps forward. Yi Hui and other personnel in charge of the battle were behind them. They had brought all the available combat forces. Facing such an enemy, no matter how cautious they were, it was not too much. But at this moment, Mugui was still a little surprised. It was the same with Jiang Xiao that time. In his first life, he had no way to deal with Jiang Xiao's attack. He could only escape. Even if he escaped, so many people died in his hands afterwards. If there were no one to help him, he would have died at Jiang Xiao's hands. In the 8th life, he was easily dealt with. The thing that was once considered terrible, after knowing its entire appearance, could be dealt with so easily. Even he himself found it unbelievable. No. Easy? Mugui couldn't help but laugh. He has many people around him now, so he can laugh off the pain of the past. But he knows that those are real. Even though they are over now, those experiences are still clearly engraved in his memory. Those cruel worlds and possibilities that may have disappeared in time. Or perhaps the tragedy that is still continuing in different timelines. If all that is ignored, it may be easy. If the tragic defeat of 7 lives is also called easy, then everyone in this world is considered to be living a happy life. He cannot treat people as NPCs that can be reset like Feng Yan. To him, they are trying their best to live well in every life. Those struggles are not ridiculous. They will eventually find a chance to win. In the chain of tragedies in this life. Mugue looked around, and the surroundings were so quiet that only the sound of wind blowing through flowers and plants remained. Everyone's eyes told him that they were ready. With so much power as support. It was really unprecedented peace of mind. Mugue looked at Feng Qing and nodded to her. She slowly raised her hand. Ping. A crisp snap of fingers. After a sound, the small chess piece disappeared, replaced by nothing. Song Jianxing had already set up his sword and activated his ability the moment the chess piece disappeared. 1. He jumped into the air and pulled down the illusory silk. However, the peach blossom silk did not fall to the ground, but covered a certain existence below that had disappeared. The peach blossom silk of the peach blossom spirit, which originally had the characteristics of hiding and changing, could once turn Mugue and others into trees hidden in the peach forest, and could also completely hide people in the air, echoing the composition of this space and blending into the space, which was basically equivalent to the disappearance of existence. Once Ingzhou's reversal ability is added, it becomes anti-hidden. 2. Slowly, but surely, a transparent human figure gradually emerges. This is also a gamble, because they are not 100% sure that the anti-hidden can succeed against their hidden existence. But they won the gamble. Song Jianxing did not stand there in a daze, but immediately pulled Wang Dongqing and put his hand on Feng Yan, the person among the people who appeared. 3. As soon as the 3 seconds were up, the figures of Feng Yan and others also fully emerged. A figure suddenly appeared in front of Wang Dongqing, and he held his breath instantly. But he knew what he was going to say, and he had practiced it many times before coming. He patted the shoulder that was close at hand. Go to sleep. Even Feng Yan couldn't react so quickly. The voice fell. Feng Yan turned into a human-shaped colorful sculpture on the spot. After the reversal, the transformation of stillness into movement became the transformation of movement into stillness. Thanks to the cooperation of the little white mouse in the experiment, they confirmed that he could turn living things into dead things in this way. Wang Dongqing's body tensed up, and when he came to his senses, he was already dragged behind by a Huey's puppet thread. He was suffocated by the murderous aura around him. He looked around and saw that everyone was ready for battle. But the group of people with special abilities around Feng Yan did not move for a while. 7 people: Yan Lu, Zhang Weizhen, Wang Qinghua, Zhang Yi, Duan Duo, Tai Shanchen, and another person, who was also a familiar face to them, Lan Yuanqing. If it wasn't for this scene, Wang Dongqing would have laughed out loud. Lan Yuanqing was one of the people who checked whether he was brainwashed most frequently. But Feng Yan, in the short time from when Mugue was rescued to now. No, it should be from when Lan Yuanqing came to return the remote control to now. Broke through the layers of defense and controlled Lan Yuanqing. If they had not made a plan in half a day and acted without hesitation, and continued to drag it out, they would most likely fail. After all, Feng Yan didn't have as many concerns as they did. Mugui's concerns were correct. After turning Feng Yan into a dead object, they were not sure whether his ability would be invalidated immediately. Even if they could experiment with mutant animals, they could not experiment with superpowers. Therefore, they must be prepared to fight with other superpowers who were brainwashed by Feng Yan. Compared with when Feng Yan was here, they might have a better chance of winning against other superpowers. After all, they have more and stronger superpowers on their side. Now the outcome will be clear. Gu Shu and Song Jianxing stared at Yan Lu. As long as he showed signs of opening the space to escape, they had to control him immediately. First, they had to make him lose his ability to move. Even if it was a little cruel. Since they had Xiao Qiudian. 2 seconds passed. 20 seconds passed. The 7 people stood there motionless. Mugue raised his hand to signal others not to move. Gu Shu and Song Jiansheng walked forward to look at Yan Lu and Lan Yuanqing. The two had no focus in their eyes. They repeatedly confirmed the situation of other people. And they were all the same. Like bodies without souls. Yihui whispered in Mugui's ear. One person is missing. Mugui, I know. Fu Xia. For some reason, Feng Yan didn't bring her here. Mugui said, Shui Yu. Qing Jian. Check them, and see what their mental state has become. Yin Qianju opened the door, take them out and isolate them first. And then see slowly. Mugui, wait! Shui Yu. Can you check first to see if their souls are still there? Shuiyue, soul? Okay. Shuiyue quickly checked them one by one. And finally said to him, the mental state is very strange. But I think the soul, this should be there. Which may be related to the state of the ability that controls them. Because it is not the brainwashing that is released or the brainwashing ability that has died. This is the first time I have seen this situation. If I have to say, the machine is stuck. It is like this state. However, in this state, I seem to be able to quickly release their brainwashing. Mugui, okay. Take them out. And everyone else should go out as well. Pay attention to the status of others, and make them powerless before the brainwashing is lifted. Yes. Yihui asked Mugui, do you want to confirm the status of his soul? Mugui, yes. It would be troublesome if his soul was taken to another place by that woman in advance. Yihui, is this just a guess? Mugui, I also hope it doesn't come true. I'm here. So you go out. Yihui hesitated for a moment, and chose to believe him. He smiled and said, don't stay here alone for too long. Mugui, I know. Qing Jian came over and asked hesitantly, if you want to confirm the status, would it be better for me to stay? Mugui, then can you see his status now? Qing Jian looked over, and saw only one line of words, human-shaped colored sculpture. He said a little frustrated, no. Mugui, then you are here to be his hostage. Let's go. Qing Jian, okay. He waved his hand, and went out. Yin Xinqiu looked at Mugui, can I stay? Mugui said in a gentle tone, I have someone here. Go wait for me outside. I won't be brainwashed by him. At the same time, the other elves in this space will not do that either. Because their only master is Yin Qianju. Yin Xinqiu said nothing more. Turned around and followed them out. After everyone else had left, Wang Dongqing patted Feng Yan and said, wake up, and was immediately dragged out by Yin Qianju. Mugui looked at Feng Yan's eyes, and they became lively again. The sight was focused on him. It seemed that his soul was still in this body. Mugui smiled at him. Feng Yan's eyes moved slightly. They didn't talk for a long time. Mugui also waited for him patiently. Finally, Feng Yan sighed softly, it seems that I lost. As a loser, he was the most graceful person Mugui had ever seen. He didn't look like a psychopath. Mugui chuckled, if you want to wait until I die to start over again, you may not be able to wait. Feng Yan slightly pulled the corner of his mouth. He still didn't think Mugui could fight against the doomsday that was going to destroy the world. He was a person who wanted to go to the past, while Mugui was a person who wanted to go to the future. Mugui, I will stop all this. And I won't die. Even if I die, hee. He smiled sarcastically. Feng Yan raised his eyes. Mugui, my ability information seems to be visible. This is the last time. There will be no next time. Qing Jian has also been with him for a long time. And his abilities have been strengthened imperceptibly. When Mugui used the strengthening ability to bless him again, Qing Jian could see all his ability information. Hanishi was just guessing. But it was true. After the 7th return, at the beginning of the 8th round, there were 2 more people, Bai Jing and Zhang Yingtao. He was originally surprised by this. But this was the last time. There is no 8th return. Just like what my brother said. When Mugui knew this, he just felt that everything was just right. And he felt refreshed from the bottom of his heart. For the first time, Feng Yan's eyes changed dramatically. Mugui suddenly raised her foot and kicked at his knee, breaking his knee and leg bone. Feng Yan gritted his teeth and half knelt on the ground. Mugui looked down at him indifferently and kicked his other knee to pieces. Feng Yan's body was not that strong. He supported himself on the ground with both hands and inserted his fingers into the soil. Mugui, does it remind you of the humiliating time when you were a child? The grass between Feng Yan's fingers was crushed by him, and he did not raise his head. Mugui kicked him in the shoulder again, and he deliberately used force. Feng Yan fell out and was forced to lie on the ground in a mess. Looking up at Mugui, Mugui looked at him calmly. I won't let you live. Letting everyone out from here is also a signal that he will take action here. He will not give this opportunity to anyone else. Mugui did not bring any weapons such as swords or guns. He did not like to torture people. But he did not want Feng Yan to die too easily. Feng Yan certainly understood what he meant. He took a deep breath and sneered, "That woman will not let you have your wish. Mugue, it has nothing to do with you." Mugue squatted down and stretched out his hand to strangle his neck, while strangling the other's breath. He did not miss any expression on Feng Yan's face. He saw all the details of Feng Yan's desire for life. Despair of death, dying struggle, unwillingness and anger. Mugue sometimes felt that the two of them were quite similar in some ways. But he absolutely could not understand that he cherished his own life so much and knew the difficulty of living. But he wanted to torture other lives that were also difficult to live. He did not need to know his motives. Wait a minute. Just when Mugue was about to end his life, Han Ishiu spoke. Mugue immediately let him go. Feng Yan lay on the ground, panting like a dying wild dog. But even so, he did not beg for mercy, but stared at him with an attacking look. "Brother." Han Ishiu took Mugue's hand and fell to the ground. Han Ishiu looked at Feng Yan. "I have something I want to know. I want to see his memory." Mugue opened his mouth and closed it again. He wanted to stop him, but Han Ishiu didn't look at him, just looked at Feng Yan. He even smiled. "I'm curious about what memory he lost." Mugue, what? Then, he also thought of the memory. Before Feng Yan obtained the memory lock, he should have used his ability, so he could find out that the price of the ability was to lose his memory. However, because he lost this memory, he probably didn't know what he had forgotten, but just felt a sense of disobedience. After Han Ishiu materialized, he could now see Feng Yan's current state. He had the same idea as Mugue, and didn't want this person, the culprit who had tortured them for so long, to die easily. However, he was even more petty than Mugue. His hatred was deeper. Death was not a punishment for this man, nor was pain. Feng Yan would definitely die. But before he died, he had to pay for some of his sins. Han Ishiu knew better than anyone that sometimes mental and psychological pain was the best tool to torture a person. This was also his own revenge. So Mugue did not stop him. Ignoring the panic in Feng Yan's eyes, Han Ishiu met his gaze. After being strengthened by Mugue, he easily defeated Feng Yan's brainwashing. Han Ishiu stepped into Feng Yan's sea of memory. "Uncle? Why did my parents suddenly abandon me? Did I do something wrong?" "No, child. You did nothing wrong. Your parents did not manage well, so they abandoned their lives. They are really cruel parents. They can abandon you alone, don't they? It's all their fault. You don't have to bear it. Come and live with us. Don't think too much. From now on, uncle and aunt are your parents." "Yes. Can you write your own name? Sign here and put your fingerprints on it. Can you?" "Yes." "All right. That's great. With the guardianship rights in hand, it will be easy. Uncle, take him away." "Why am I here? Where are my parents?" "Are you talking about your uncle and aunt who sold you?" "Ha ha ha. Your parents were killed by them, but you still call them mom and dad. It's so funny. You lied. Look, he will be obedient after a few hits. If you want to escape in the future, just hit him. Just don't kill him. He's a boy after all. Kid, are you okay?" Han Ishiu casually scanned the memories that still existed. And then, he quickly found the lost memory. The memory devoured by the ability is not really lost and can never be found again, but it is sealed in a corner. Han Ishiu easily found and unsealed it. 12-year-old Feng Yan escaped from the welfare home and stood on the bridge. The vehicles coming and going on the bridge also stopped. "Child, get off first." "Oh, what's so sad about being so young? Where are the police? Haven't the police arrived yet?" Feng Yan looked back at the anxious crowd and wondered, why didn't anyone come to save him when he needed it the most? But now they jumped out? It doesn't matter. He jumped off the bridge. He threw himself into the turbulent river. However, he didn't see that at the same time. On the other side, there was a child of the same age as him, who was also preparing to jump down. He chose a less conspicuous position. He just turned his head to look at Feng Yan. After Feng Yan jumped down, he followed suit. It was not a very wide river, but after entering, the river was still turbulent. It was just a coincidence that the wind on the shore brought their water flow into one direction. Feng Yan was tossed and swirled in the water, and soon he felt the pain of drowning. His survival instinct made him struggle and cry out, but he continued to sink. When he was about to die, He realized that he wanted to live like this. I don't want to die. I want to live. A hand grabbed him. He rowed to the shore. When he got to the shore, he vomited everything in his stomach, feeling extremely uncomfortable. He looked up and found that the one who saved him was actually a child of the same age as him. The other party didn't drink much water. After patting his back hard, he pulled him up and ran desperately. They ran all the way to the bottom of the abandoned bridge in a village, where they sat there wringing clothes, continued to vomit, and shivered. The child put clothes picked up from the garbage dump on him. Feng Yan asked him, "Why did you jump too?" The child hugged his knees and said, "Because I want to die too." Feng Yan, "But you can swim." The child, "I heard that entering the water from that height is like hitting cement. I regretted it when I stood on it. And it was really painful to jump down. It hurt a lot. But I didn't die." Feng Yan, "Then why did you jump down to save me?" The child, "Because you seem to want to live." Feng Yan, after a long while, he looked up and said, "I figured it out. Those people who made me so miserable are not dead yet. Why should I die now? At least I should kill them first before I die. What about you?" The child, "I don't want to think about it anymore. I just had a brain twitch. I won't do it again." Feng Yan, "Why?" The child, "Because someone saved me. He told me to live well. So I have to do this. I don't want to break this promise again." Feng Yan was about to say something when he interrupted him again. "So since you were saved by me, you should live on and stop looking for death. Since your enemies are living so well, you have to live better than them, so that it can be considered revenge." Feng Yan opened his mouth. He finally replied with one word, "Okay. You don't need to thank me. If you meet such a person in the future, just do your best to save him. But you must do it within your ability, and don't get yourself involved. This situation is not common." "Yes." In the end, he did not ask the child's name, and the child did the same. They looked at each other seriously, and hurriedly went in two completely opposite directions. Hanishu originally planned to stop here, but he saw the child in the sealed memory fragment, and could not stop there. The child who saved the young Feng Yan was Mu Gui. He eagerly browsed the memories behind Feng Yan, but he never saw Mu Gui again until Feng Yan was 20 years old. During that time, the company he hated went bankrupt, and the person he hated fled abroad, and he lived to adulthood with deep hatred hidden. Once after the disaster began, he used his supernatural power on others out of survival instinct, and used it about 3 times afterwards. But one time, the memory he lost happened to be yesterday's memory. He discovered the cost of using his ability, and stopped immediately. Unless his life was in danger, he would never use his ability again. Hanishu had read all these lost memories, except for the part when Mugui rescued him as a child. The others were insignificant fragments of memory. However, Hanishu had a hunch that his behavior had changed rapidly because of the loss of that memory. He was left with the obsession of life and hatred, as well as the delusion of changing the past. In his entire life, except for the child who rescued him, he believed that no one had ever been kind to him. So after losing this memory, he also completely abandoned the kindness of human nature. However, Hanishu thought that such an idea was really bullshit. Mugui's starting point in life was much more miserable than his. But he always saw the small kindness of others to him, and tried his best to repay those kindnesses, strengthen himself, and never give up the vitality to struggle out of the mud. He had been trying to save himself since before he picked up Mugui. This land is always full of disasters and victims, but he has never been involved in disasters. Feng Yan just played the role of a victim in his own tragedy, and then used this as an excuse to transform into a perpetrator with inside information. Hanishu saved his memory, focused on the part about Fuxia, rewrote his memory according to his own ideas, and then withdrew. As soon as Hanishu opened his eyes, Mugui pulled him back. "How is it? Are you okay?" Hanishu, "It's okay. I got his memory," he said. "Let me go back." Mugui nodded and called him back to look over. Feng Yan's face turned extremely pale, and his eyes flickered, as if he thought of something horrible. "Soon!" he screamed. Mugui had never seen him like that. So he asked Hanishu, "What did you do to him?" Hanishu said lightly, "I just replaced the faces of his parents and himself with the faces of all the people he had killed." Of course, he would not say anything about Mugui. He took back the other party's lost memory. He wanted to see how the other party would react. This was not unexpected. Feng Yan was obsessed with going back to the past because there was a huge gap between the good times of his childhood and the repressive life in the future. Such a person would try his best to beautify his past. So there is no better punishment than to let him experience the destruction of his past and the people he cherishes with his own hands. Mugui approached. Feng Yin looked up and saw him, and screamed as if he saw a ghost, and then kept banging his head on the ground, until his head was broken and bleeding, while constantly saying sorry. Mugui watched him hit himself to death. Mugui raised his head. Soon, cherry blossom petals had covered most of the grass. This place was really an overly generous grave for this man. Is it simple? They came to this point based on so many sacrifices, so many reincarnations, and so many people suffering. He didn't dare to look back. Even without Wang Dongqing's ability, he had so many friendly forces that he would definitely find a way to catch him. And this time, no one would be sacrificed. This was determined from the beginning. Mugui held down his slightly trembling right hand. He saw Han Ishu's hand placed on his hand in the void. Other ghosts also gathered and stood beside him. He closed his eyes, calmed his breath, turned around and knocked on the boundary marker that symbolized the door. The white vortex opened, and Yin Qinju led him out. None of the people outside left, waiting for him. Mugui whispered to Yin Qinju, "Sorry for the trouble." Yin Qinju realized that it was about dealing with the corpse, and didn't say a word, just nodded. Yin Qinju showed a peaceful smile and asked him, "Is it over?" Mugui also smiled back, "It's over." Chapter 204. What else? The brainwashed superpowers were de-brainwashed one by one, except for Lan Yuanqing, who had just been brainwashed and could not do anything. The responsibilities of the others were still to be determined. However, Lan Yuanqing himself was the leader of the Disaster Bureau and had also been brainwashed, so the punishment for them would most likely be lenient. But the psychological treatment process they needed to undergo must be extremely long. Jean Mo switched back to his secondary account from his main account, and said with some emotion, "It feels like I came here in vain. It's clearly the atmosphere of a decisive battle, but I am useless." Mugui, don't worry. The opportunity to keep you busy will come soon. Jean Mo? Yihui walked forward. The blood tide is coming soon. Jean Mo. That's right. Mugui, don't think it's easy to deal with. But before that, we have to find someone first. Yihui added, Luding Mu. Mugui, yes. Wang Dongqing came over with Ruby in his arms, and that monster. Maybe I can use my ability to deal with it. Mugui, just take Baiji with you. I won't go. He shrugged and walked away. Qingjian asked him, didn't the woman with the soul lamp disappear? Mugui, we got information about her, but it's not clear where she is. After dealing with Feng Yin, they still had a lot to do, so they decided to go back and talk about it. However, after they went back, they received a notice from the prophet. Lan Yuanqing didn't avoid them anymore. He gathered all the captains and Mugui's group in the conference room and told them, according to the prophet's updated prophecy, the time of the blood tide has not changed much. She said there is no need to worry about it. Everything will go well. But the time for the ocean to freeze has been advanced from February 2062 to October 2061. The specific reason is unknown. Yihui, did they say how serious the freezing situation is? Lan Yuanqing. All oceans and continents are completely frozen. Mugui first thought of the woman who escaped. But the other party's ability seems to have nothing to do with ice? How did he do it? And, the moment Lan Yuanqing opened his mouth, everyone had an idea at the same time. How could there be more? Seed. The seed. We need to collect seeds before the freezing time is advanced. It is predicted that around September 2080, all the seeds scattered outside will germinate together, and then devour the surrounding creatures, whether mutants or humans, and will take root in the land, making it extremely difficult to eradicate. So it is not clear what effect this thing will have in the later stage of development. At present, this is all we have. There is still plenty of time, so we can put this aside for now. Yihui, well, it is easier to deal with it if we know it in advance. Mugui, what about other countries? Have they been notified? Lan Yuanqing, we will use some means to notify them. But whether they are trusted or not is not something we can control. And now each country has its own chaos. We can't risk sending people there. In short, it's all up to you. Mugui was thinking. And those who knew him knew that he was already calculating solutions to these problems. After a while, he looked up and found that everyone was staring at him. Mugui, what? Lan Yuanqing said carefully, Do you have a plan? Mugui was speechless. From the time when he tried his best to convince them of his proposal, to now when he took the initiative to ask himself. He really improved a lot. He said, deal with them one by one? With so many people around. Are you still afraid that you can't handle it? And the prophet also said that the result was very smooth. Feng Yan and Jiang Zhao have been dealt with. And so many living forces have been preserved. So the woman is not impossible to find. He said this. In fact, there is a solution. Lan Yuanqing smiled, which showed trust and peace of mind. Well said. The combat force arrangement for the Blood Sea Tide was made earlier. Most of the superpowers present were experienced in battle. So he didn't say any more nonsense and let them go back early. When Hui went out, he put his arm around his shoulder and asked him, what do you want to do with looting Mu? Mugui. Qingjian, you are not going to use the same trick again. Are you? That's it. Even Qingjian saw it. Mugui pinched his eyebrows. Then can you find him within 10 days? Hui, 10 days? We only need 3 days. Qingjian and Wang Dongqing will accompany me to find him. And I will bring him to you in 3 days. Mugui. Qingjian? Hui smiled and said, send me all the information you know about him. If it doesn't work, you can make another move. You should have a good rest these days. He dragged Qingjian away without telling him how to find him. Mugui looked at the captains who came out and found a captain. You should not use your ability recently. Are you still losing weight? Zuishang was stunned. How do you know? Mugui, wait for a while. There may be a person with ability here who can reduce the cost of ability. Although he knew that he had lived for many years in the end. It was not a joke after all. He did not remind them before because the current situation still needed them to support them. We will face several tough battles next. And we can no longer take the cost lightly, lest we lose our lives in vain. Zuishang had worked with them briefly before, and had heard of Mugui's name. So he nodded, okay. I plan to take a break during this period anyway. I'll go talk to Director Lan. The conversation should have ended there. But Mugui said for some reason, if you want to write a novel in the future, can you not write such a tragic ending? Zuishang. How do you know? Mugui held his forehead and raised his hand. Just pretend you didn't hear what I said. Nothing happened. He went back confused. Anishu smiled behind him. Mugui first went to see Ai Buji and Ai Qingqian. They had received the notice in advance. But for the sake of caution, they had not come out of the bubble, and were waiting for him to come over. They were also very happy. After all, they had to hide from the enemy for a long time, which was very frustrating. They chatted for a while. And then Mugui took Wang Dongqing to see the scroll of paintings. The reason why he still kept Jiang Zhao alive was because of this. The scroll of paintings is currently kept by Ji Liu and managed by the members of his team. Currently, only 4 scrolls are preserved in the scroll of paintings. Jing Shaxu, Zuazalin, Painting Fairy, and Wan Ligio. Currently, only Painting Fairy and Jing Shaxu still have people inside. Mugui took Wang Dongqing into Painting Fairy. Wang Dongqing looked at the old man. You want me to turn this ghost into a still life and try to take it out? Mugui, yes. Su Pinchian also agreed with this approach. Wang Dongqing, it's an interesting idea. But I can't guarantee that after he goes out, he will be a soul or a real person when he turns back? What if he becomes a ghost and floats away directly? After all, there is no. After hearing what he said, Mugui seriously considered this possibility. Su Pinchian smiled and said, then I have also got what I wanted. The old man should have died long ago. Wang Dongqing, that is also becoming an immortal or a Buddha. Su Pinchian, ha ha ha. Mugui, let's see if we can take it out first. Wang Dongqing could touch Su Pinchian's body in the painting. And he patted him, go to sleep. The old man smiled faintly, and turned into a statue of immortal. Mugui summoned Yensiji. And the two carried the sculpture out. The sculpture was transported outside safely. Mugui's idea was to find Ingjio, and let Ingjio reverse Wang Dongqing's ability again, turning stillness into movement. Wang Dongqing, is it possible that he will become another person? Mugui, not sure. I'll take a gamble. I bet it's still the same person. Wang Dongqing smiled. There's no undo button. Mugui, it's okay. Mr. Su has already prepared himself mentally. Wang Dongqing then patted the sculpture twice. Wake up. The sculpture turned into a lifelike human again. Su Pinchian looked at the two of them for a long time before speaking. Did it work? Mugui smiled and asked, do you remember that your apprentice went crazy? Su Pinchian. Well, I remember you told me that Jiang Zhao had been locked up by you. Mugui, look. It's still the same. Wang Dongqing, did you know this result a long time ago? Is this also your prediction? Mugui, no. My prediction is outdated. And most of what comes next is unknown. Su Pinqian didn't seem to have thought that he could be resurrected. Wang Dongqing also circled around him in surprise. Is this a bug? It's so interesting. Mugui, human superpowers have infinite possibilities. Mugui finally said to Su Pinqian, the old man just came out and needs to adapt to the environment. If you need any help, please ask the staff. We have other things to do, and leave first. Su Pinqian tried to keep him, and that little girl. Mugui knew he was talking about Mo Xuejiang and Jing Shaxu. As for her, I will find a way to bring her out later. At present, she lacks key abilities. Hearing him say this, Su Pinqian also breathed a sigh of relief. After saying goodbye to him, Ingjiu went back by himself. And Wang Dongqing was borrowed by Yi Hui. Mugui went to find Feng Boming and Yan Cixi. And they went to Feng Boming's home in the current base in Beijing, where Feng Boming's parents were waiting for them. Even in this life, they had taken care of them in Jinqing. It's just that there were too many things to do after returning to Beijing, so he didn't have a chance to see them properly. Feng Boming was a person who liked lively occasions, and he dragged them to play all night. Mugui also visited Zhang Yingdao's family. His father was as healthy as ever, and Bai Jing was living with him. They were relatively unfamiliar with each other. It was the same in the first life. Although Zhang Yingdao said that he knew her intention, but Mugui couldn't face her father at that time. It was probably the same for her father. He didn't blame Mugui too much, but he didn't know what to say. The place they met most often was the grave. As a result, when Mugui saw him now, she would still think of the scene of Zhang Yingdao dying on the hospital bed from time to time, when he occasionally went to their house. Zhang's father also talked about Zhang Yingdao's past, but he couldn't continue talking. He thought at that time that he would rather hear these things when she was alive. This time, Zhang Yingdao asked him, why did you suddenly think of playing at my house? Mugui smiled. I'm just curious about what kind of father can raise such a strong person. Zhang Yingdao raised an eyebrow. You praise me like this, but I don't have anything to give you. Is there anything I can help you with? Mugui, no. You have helped me a lot. Then he asked her father about Zhang Yingdao's childhood. He, a big man, happily showed him her photos and electronic photo albums. Bai Jing also came to join in the fun. It was not until Zhang Yingdao woke them up with a punch that they went to eat. The next day, Mugui went to pick up Yan Xinxiu, who had been under investigation for several days. As Feng Yan's assistant and not brainwashed, he still had some suspicion. But because he helped them to defeat the criminals as an insider, the punishment was light and basically nothing happened. Yan Xinxiu took Mugui to the unit where Wan Qingyuan and Lin Yichuan were, and finally laid out everything. Mugui and his team actually did not have a formal team, even if it was a hired cooperation team. Most of the things they did were not made public. And if they were made public, it was Lan Yuanxing or Yi Hui who released them. So their fame only existed in the various first-line regular teams. Lin Yichuan and his team had their own areas of responsibility, and basically had no time to pay attention to other things. They first cut off contact with Yan Xinxiu, and when they came back, they learned that both of them were fine and had recognized each other. And they all cried with joy. The two middle-aged men cried uncontrollably. But Mugui and Yan Xinxiu just laughed. Mugui accompanied them for 3 days, and he always felt that he had regressed to a 7 or 8-year-old in front of these people. They prepared a temporary dormitory for the two of them to rest. One night, Yan Xinxiu said to Mugui, Mugui, about those memories. Mugui was originally lying on the bed and looking at him. But after hearing what he said, she turned over and faced away from him. No. Yan Xinxiu lowered his head with a look of disappointment. Even though Mugui couldn't see, he could feel his mood. He felt that he had to explain it clearly. So he turned back and said to him, Brother, there are some things you don't have to bear. Hanishu, who had already become a ghost, was already distressing enough for him. He didn't want Yan Xinxiu to continue to bear so many things in this life. Yan Xinxiu smiled bitterly. I thought so too. Because he felt that Mugui didn't have to bear these. He chose not to say anything and chose to leave him. But the result was like this. Mugui, no. It's different. He reached out and covered the back of Yan Xinxiu's hand. I'm here now. Yan Xinxiu no longer forced himself. He nodded and relaxed his eyebrows. Yes. Yan Xinxiu just looked at him. But his heart was still heavy. Mugui asked, "What are you thinking about?" Yan Xinxiu, "I'm thinking. I'll tell you after everything is over. It's all a tough battle of strength after this. I may not be able to help you with anything. Promise me a few things." Mugui, "I will agree to whatever you say." Yan Xinxiu, "I haven't said it yet." Mugui, "Will you ask me to do something I can't do?" Yan Xinxiu smiled gently. "No." Mugui, "Go ahead." Yan Xinxiu, "Try not to force yourself. Rely on more people. Save more people. And finally come back to me intact." Mugui smiled. "This is what I am going to do." Yan Xinxiu, "I know you can do it. But then?" He held out his hand. His little finger. "Do you want to make a pinky promise?" Mugui looked at him, and fell into a brief stiffness. Yan Xinxiu said lightly, "If you don't come back this time, I will die with you." Mugui became even stiffer. Yan Xinxiu suddenly laughed. "Don't be afraid. I'm kidding you. There's no punishment. You can definitely do it. Right?" Mugui held out her hand. And they made a pinky promise like when they were little. Only this time, it was Mugui who promised to come back. Yan Xinxiu pressed his forehead with a coaxing gesture. "Go to sleep." Mugui half closed his eyelids and looked at Yan Xinxiu's face, feeling that he was the only person he could not do anything to, and he owed him too much. However, he was awakened by a polite knock on the door that night. When Mugui got up, he saw Yan Xinxiu had already climbed up to open the door. He showed his face. "I caught him. Go and see." Chapter 205 Give to the Sun. Lu Dingmu's current makeup is not like the saintly father in the later period. At most he looks like a street kid with dyed hair. He is like a trembling quail in a circle of people. "That?" Mugui directly pressed his shoulder. "Let's start." You can see his ability. He directly used the enhancement. Qing Jian nodded, focused his eyes on Lu Dingmu, and read while watching. The number has increased. During the enhancement period, about 10 capsules of each type can be produced per day. The effects of the 3 drugs of benign, deterioration, and restoration are enhanced. The enhanced benign capsules can directly eliminate the cost of ability and enhance the ability itself. The success rate is 100%. But the duration of the drug effect is limited. About 1 hour. The enhanced deteriorated capsule can multiply the cost of superpowers. The probability of the restoration capsule eliminating superpowers has increased to 80%, which is permanent. Mugui spread his hands to Lu Dingmu. "Come on." Lu Dingmu. He could only obediently make 30 capsules for them. After Mugui let Lu Dingmu go, the capsules that had been made and the enhanced efficacy would not disappear. Mugui gave him 3 bottles for preservation. "From today on, you will report to the Superpower Pharmaceutical Bureau. I will go there once a day to help you make this medicine. The only thing you need to be responsible for is making medicine, keeping it, and counting the quantity. Of course, there will be superpowers responsible for protecting and guarding it. If it is lost, the responsibility is on you." Lu Dingmu. "Although I don't know what happened. It seems that I was forced to join the army and got a leisurely and stable job. But this job seems a bit dangerous." Lu Dingmu. "Is there food? Is there a place to live?" Mugui. "Everything is available." Lu Dingmu breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, he seemed to be just a small person who was eager for food and clothing. Mugui. "Try to make another one now." Lu Dingmu. "But just now." "Okay. I'll try." As a result, he was still able to make ordinary capsules in the de-enhanced state. Mugui said, "Put this away too. And put it in different bottles. Because the appearance and color of the capsules before and after the enhancement are exactly the same. It is easy to confuse them. But Lu Dingmu himself can easily distinguish them. So it is most appropriate to let him sort them out." After explaining to Lu Dingmu, a group of people gathered into the seed experimental area. There are all the seeds currently collected by the government. They were all isolated with heavy radiation protection measures. Even though they were all capable people, they still went through layers of screening before entering. This time, they were facing a seed with a diameter of about 3 meters. Gu Shu opened the collection book with one hand and painted black with the other hand. The swallowing had already adhered to his palm. He looked at Mugui, who nodded to him, and he slowly moved towards the seed. However, the moment he really touched it, the black disappeared completely. Gu Shu jumped back and quickly retreated. Mugui immediately asked, "Are you not injured?" Xiao Qiutian was also on standby. Gu Shu looked at his hand. No, it just felt like being pricked by a needle. Hui, it seems that swallowing won't work. This thing is clearly the source of superpowers. But it is completely anti-superpower. Wang Dongqing stepped forward. Let me try. This thing can sprout. Which means it is a living thing in some sense. By the way, he has used this ability to turn the number 0C monster into a large sculpture. And then blew it all up with explosives. Ingio reversed his ability beside him. He put his palm on the uneven outer wall of the seed. After a while, nothing happened. Wang Dongqing stepped back with a little regret. It didn't work. Ingio didn't believe it either and rolled up his sleeves to try it. But he couldn't reverse its state. Mr. Su Pinqian, who regained his ability and body, tried to use the scroll of painting to absorb it into the painting, but failed. Inqianju also failed. AI Buji and AI Qinshin wanted to try to include it in the illustration, but they didn't succeed either. This thing seemed to be neither a plant nor an animal. Once the bubble of AI Buji touches the seed, it will break like an ordinary bubble. In short, all the ability users have tried all their abilities, but any attack type ability cannot cause any damage to it, and the auxiliary ability will fail as soon as it touches it. There is nothing they can do. For so long, researchers have been studying this thing day and night, but they have not been able to find out anything. Jin Changmin punched the seed with his dragon-like arm, but it did not move at all. He stepped back and squatted on the ground in distress, watching them discuss various possibilities. He held his head and said casually, since we can't destroy it, just send these things away. Send them far away, such as sending them to space. Hui and Mugui looked at him at the same time. More people focused their attention on him. Jin Changmin scratched his head awkwardly. Ah, I just said it casually. Don't take it seriously. Hui and Mugui looked at each other. And Hui opened the communication. Give me the observation data of the sun and its surroundings. I want to know what happened to the seeds that were attracted by the sun's gravitational field and collided with the sun. Wang Dongqing raised his hand. It's faster to ask me than to ask them. Hui smiled and sat next to him and said with a smile, yes. Can you find it? Ruby, wait a minute. I'll be there soon. Mugui called the other end, Director Lan. I need Yanlu and Johnny here. Please release them, and take them to the isolation experiment area 56B here. Jin Changmin hadn't figured it out yet, but they had already started to act quickly. Wang Dongqing quickly got the data. 90% of the seeds attracted by the gravitational field and fell on the sun have been destroyed. It's not a moment, but a process. So the activities on the surface of the sun are so frequent during this period. The gravity of the planets within the orbit of the Earth in the solar system is too weak. Only a few fall on them, and a small part is still on the surface of the sun, forming a small low-temperature zone. Hui smiled with satisfaction. It seems that even such perverted things will be destroyed by the energy of stars. Qing Jian. So, are you really going to send these things into space? Hui, no. Send them to the sun. Jin Mo, but how? At this time, Yanlu and Johnny arrived. Yanlu returned to his team, and is currently working twice as hard to pay off his debts, while Johnny joined his team. Mugui, depend on them. Wang Dongqing looked at this group of people and said, I see. Yanlu, you are looking for us? He was still very polite to Mugui. After all, it was Mugui and his team who led them to rescue them from Fengyan. Mugui asked directly, if I let you open a portal from here to space, how far can you go? Yanlu. He had never considered such an outrageous question in his life. Yanlu, I haven't tried it. I don't know. Mugui, then try it now. Qing Jian held his forehead with his hands. It was indeed abnormal. He could make such a difficult request in front of him without changing his expression. Yanlu took a deep breath and turned his hand to open the black vortex. Through this channel, he could usually go anywhere, but it was limited to the Earth. He had never thought about space. Yanlu said after a while, in the outer circle of the atmosphere. Mugui turned to Wang Dongqing and said, show him the simulation video of the orbital distance of the planets in the solar system. If he needs a precise distance, it should be proportional and within the orbit of the Earth. Ruby quickly pulled out a holographic 3D simulation video for him. Yanlu, He wanted to say that he had learned this in elementary school, but seeing Mugui's eyes, he took back his words and carefully looked at the various distances. Mugui, try again. This time Yanlu's eyes were full of amazement. About 300,000 kilometers. It was also the first time he knew that his space teleportation could reach such a long distance. Hui, it's far from enough. Not even beyond the radius of the Earth's hill sphere. Mugui directly pressed on Yen Lu's shoulder. I will strengthen your ability. The farther the better. To be more specific. $1 astronomical unit. Send it directly to the sun. Yen Lu. How dare you? But he was also prepared. Let's start. No one on the other side of his ability can verify it for him. Only he can feel it. After a while, Yen Lu's breathing became heavier. He put down his hand, opened his eyes and said, this is the limit. 75 cents. Mugui also withdrew his hand and smiled. Very good. It can be done. Jinemo stared at him dimly. Uncle, do you know how many of these things there are in the country? Mugui held his wrist. So we have to send them all at once. Jinemo, so how do we send them? This one is very difficult to move. Yihui, why do you think your uncle called her here? Zhang Yi seemed a little reserved, but still stood behind Yen Lu. Jinemo, I still don't understand. Mugui, rather than explaining, let's give it a try. He called Gushu. Reducing gravity is not for a certain object, but for the space around the seed. Gushu learned the ability to control gravity from Jiangzhou, and he tried it according to what Mugui said. The seed really floated up. Then came Zhang Yi's vacuum seal, because the interior is a vacuum, and the influence of gravity has been eliminated. As long as the seed does not touch the boundary of the magic cube seal, it can move freely. Jinemo understood it now, and was amazed. He quietly complained to Qing Jian, I don't know what's wrong with their brains. They thought of this method in an instant. Qing Jian sighed, this is also due to experience. Mugui, move to the space portal. This operation has been tried after being brainwashed by Feng Yan, so they are very skilled. It's just teleporting from one side of this area to the other. But it succeeded. Mugui said to Zhang Yi, you have to try the quantity and quality you can transport later. This also determines how many times Mugui needs to use the enhancement. Zhang Yi nodded repeatedly and agreed. Chapter 206 No Longer Powerless. July 1st, 2061. The Prophet has always been sure of the date of the blood tide, and there has not been much change. This time, they have made unprecedented preparations. Mugui stood on the temporary sentry post on the coast. The seawall was also built very high, and in order to resist the impact of waves and marine life, it was specially reinforced with supernatural powers, because the coastline is too long. All powerful supernaturals need to be responsible for different areas. There were no other companions standing beside Mugui. Lan Yuanqing was in the coastal area east of Gusheng. The big harbor he was in charge of was located in the south of the area Lan Yuanqing was in charge of. Haizhou. The seawater in the telescope was boiling in blood. The sky was covered by a storm. They were already on full alert. Mugui was feeling the killing sea breeze when Hanishu spoke. Mugui, you should know that every time you use them, their memories will be restored. Once all are restored, they will disappear. He was talking about the ghosts that were bound by his ability. Mugui. Yeah. Yin Siji had the memory of his first life as a human and the memory of his second to seventh lives as a ghost. Feng Boming had the memory of his first and second lives as a human and the memory of his third to seventh lives as a ghost. The same is true for the others. This is also the fact that those experiences have told him. Once the ability is used to the limit, when the time for all memories to recover comes, even if he wants to continue using them, it will be impossible. They will turn into ashes, and he will have to bear the price of death. Hanishu, I know. It's unrealistic to ask you not to use your ability, but you must control the limit. Mugui, I know. Hanishu, you only put Xiao Qiutian here in the back so that you can use this ability uninterruptedly. Right? The price of body collapse can be healed instantly by Xiao Qiutian, so there is no need to waste time on recovery. Mugui. He felt a little guilty. All his thoughts were seen through. Mugui whispered, there are also benign drugs. But he also knew that the drugs produced in such a short time had to be distributed to many people, which was not enough to sustain the entire battle. Hanishu smiled and said, you want to defend this coastline. You don't want casualties, but you don't want them to disappear. Right? Mugui. He knew that his approach was greedy, but he really wanted to do it. Hanishu, then I have a suggestion now. Mugui, what is it? Hanishu put his hand on his chest. I am still here. Which is the proof. I have complete memories, but I have never disappeared. Mugui understood what he meant, and his breathing became rapid. Hanishu, but I am not sure whether others will succeed. This is a gamble. If you fail, You will lose these fighting forces in advance. If you succeed, you will keep these ghosts with complete memories. So you make a decision. Hanishu meant that Mugue would summon all these ghosts, and let Hanishu restore all their lost memories, so that they would not disappear because of the restoration of complete memories. But because he had never done this to other ghosts before, he didn't know if it would work. Also, because Hanishu had never been summoned for a long time before disappearing, he was not sure whether there would be a time limit after recovering his memory. There were still many uncertainties. This was a gamble. Ihui took the lead in expressing his opinion. I want to give it a try. And I'm also curious about those memories. Feng Boming, I want to try it too. Yen Siji, I agree. Jin Changmin, then I will too. Lei Chen, as long as you don't object. Zhang Yingtao, I agree too. Bai Jing, I want to get my memory back. Mugue listened to their statements and closed her eyes. They were never afraid of getting those memories back. And Mugue had only one choice. Mugue opened her eyes and said, every time you recover your memory, you must tell me what stage you have reached. When you judge that there is not much memory left, I will let my brother restore the remaining memory for you. You must control the remaining memory. Hanishu smiled. You always choose the best way. Mugue is not afraid of gambling. But sometimes, there is no need to gamble in advance. Since he doesn't want to lose in advance, it is most appropriate to gamble when he reaches the limit. At that time, he will decide whether to keep or lose. Hanishu, you have another choice. Don't use them after reaching the limit. In this way, you can keep them by your side safely. Mugue. But the reality did not allow him to do so. He could fully anticipate the battles that would follow, and he had to use this ability. Hanishu, then I will support your decision. No matter what choice you make, I will do it your way. Mugue's expression softened. Well, that's good. Woo woo woo. The alarm sounded along the coast. The hurricane pushed the huge waves like a monster opened its mouth and rushed towards them. However, this time, he was no longer powerless. September 1st, 2061. After 2 months of fighting, the situation finally eased. With the perseverance of countless superpowers and the army, the entire coastline from the east to the south was not pushed forward even 100 meters. Occasionally, some places were breached, but they were quickly compensated by support from other places. All superpowers were highly involved in disaster relief and disaster relief. Yen Lu, Feng Qing, Li Lin and others were responsible for large-scale personnel dispatch. Because all the coastal bases were evacuated in advance, casualties were kept to a minimum. Haijo casualties. 434 people were injured. And the death toll. 0. No one died. When Lan Yuanqing reported the interim results to other regional leaders via remote video, everyone fell silent because of this outrageous number. In all the areas they were responsible for, no matter how strong their personal strength was, it was impossible to have a zero-death situation. The battle was huge and complicated, and it was difficult to take care of all the blind spots. There would always be people who died accidentally in the battle. They all knew how difficult it was, but they didn't expect that someone actually did it. No one considered whether this was a false report, because at this time and in this situation, there was no need for this. The person who created this outrageous number was sleeping on a simple military bed with a video on. His sleeping face was tired and peaceful, and was clearly reflected in front of everyone. Xiao Qiutian leaned against the corner of his bed, holding a ruler and knife, his eyelids opening and closing. Their clothes were stained with various colors of dried blood. Lan Yuanqing's fingertips trembled slightly, closed the briefing terminal, and said with a sigh, everyone has worked hard. The first blood tide came to an end. They spent another half a month to do the cleanup work, cleaning up the remaining mutant marine life that fell on the land. There may be similar disasters in the future, and the blood tide will not happen once. But they have sufficient experience, as well as the prophet's prediction. They have the experience of winning, and no one will be afraid of it anymore. They only have confidence. And all this seems to be due to the efforts of one person. He is like the most critical gear connecting the switch, driving the operation of the entire huge machine. To reach this step, everything is linked together and indispensable. Mugue withdrew from the front line in mid-September. The ghosts behind him recovered all their memories under Hanishu's ability. But they did not disappear. They just became more noisy. Feng Boming shouted, Mugue, leave the seed matter to them first. You don't have to do anything. Mugue said coldly, too slow. At that speed, let alone more than 10 years. You can't find it in 100 years. Not to mention the overseas part. Not to mention that Fu Xia, the woman, has not been found. Who knows what tricks she has? They didn't look for her during this period just because they really didn't have time. The overall casualties this time were indeed much less. But the feeling of facing mutant creatures was different from the previous times. All the marine creatures on the shore were more violent than in any previous life. And many fighters in other areas died as a result. He was basically sure that this was the work of that woman. Is it related to the runaway in Feng Yan's memory? Feng Boming simply turned to Hanishu. Aren't you his brother? You come to persuade him. Hanishu smiled and said, I have already said that I will respect any decision he makes. He changed the subject. But, Mugui, you promised me not to push yourself too hard. Mugui slowed down. It's okay. I have medicine. He can eliminate the cost of his ability in a short time through benign chemicals, as long as he finds all the seeds during this time. At this time, he suddenly thought of eliminating all costs, which means that he can break through the limit, not limited to the whole country, but also to the world. Mugui's eyes suddenly lit up. Ihui crossed his arms and said helplessly, This guy is thinking of something dangerous again. Mugui retorted, It's not dangerous. I will control the degree. After Qin Jian's strong opposition failed, Mugui once again formed a detection team and recorded all the seed locations in the world, including those in the ocean. Of course, Mugui took several benign drugs in a row, so he didn't suffer as much as last time. That being said, as soon as they left the front line, they immediately started collecting seeds. However, they can collect seeds nationwide, but cannot take care of other countries. This is the biggest problem. I don't know how long they have been struggling with this issue, but to no avail. In the end, they could only use some tools to send prophetic letters to other countries, reminding them of what will happen next and how to deal with it. At the same time, during the detection process, they also locked on the existence of that woman. Fu Xia is different from Feng Yan. She doesn't have a hidden ability person with her, so she can be found in this way. But it took Yan Xinxiu a lot of effort to find her from the huge amount of information. Feng Shudong originally had 5 anchor points. Feng Yan, Yan Xinxiu, Mugui, Jiang Zhao, and monster number 0 were all removed, leaving a special position for her. Her ability is Soul Lamp. As for what magical effect this ability has, we have to wait until they catch the person to find out. Qin Jian said in a deep voice. She is now on Golinden Island. Mugui and the others decided to catch the person before the other party did anything. Although cross-border law enforcement is difficult, it is not impossible for them with so many abilities. However, on October 3rd, Mugui woke up from the bed. Or more precisely, woke up from the cold. The walls and doors were frozen. Yesterday was still hot and scorching, but today it was an ice age. It was a few days earlier than Fei Ningxi's prediction, and the ice age had indeed arrived. If nothing was done about it, many people would die. As soon as Mugui kicked the door open, a super low temperature reminder came from the watch. The average temperature outside was minus 35 degrees Celsius. Someone has come to deliver winter clothes. Mugui puts on the clothes and runs to meet up with Ihui and the others. Lan Yuanxing is anxiously circling around the desk. Seeing Mugui coming, he quickly asks him, They said you already have a solution? Mugui smiles, Yes. There is another reason why he is not in a hurry. That is, he already has a way to deal with this frozen world. Mugui asks Jilia to take out the scroll of painting shocking snow. Mugui brings Mo Xuejiang out from inside. People outside had originally heard that it was a giantess, but the one who came out holding Mugui's hand was a petite girl with white hair and blue eyes. Mugui smiled and introduced to everyone. Her name is Mo Xuejiang. Mo Xuejiang's long and curly eyelashes were stained with crystal tears. It took her a long time to finally see the light of day again, and she was still a normal-sized body. Thank you. Thank you. She choked up and thanked Mugui, looking at all the strangers with eyes full of joy and gratitude. Qin Jian, how did you do that? Mugui, all the benign chemicals that have not been enhanced were given to her first. The enlargement of her body is due to the price of her superpowers. Qin Jian looked at Mo Xuejiang, and his expression gradually changed. Mugui, she has a very strong and uncontrollable ice power. Ingzio smiled and walked forward with his hands behind his back. Is it my turn again? Mugui smiled, Yes. Ingzio and Mo Xuejiang cooperated. And if it was not enough, Then with Mugui's enhancement, it would not be difficult to solve the ice. The problem is that after that, they must immediately go to arrest the culprit the moment the ice is resolved. They originally planned to go today, but the other party was more anxious than them, and took action directly in the middle of the night. When all the personnel were in place, Mugui said to them, "Let's start." Ingjiu reversed Mo Xuejiang's ability. So Mo Xuejiang began to absorb ice and snow from the original place. I don't know whether the ice and snow absorbed into her small body was stored or dissolved by her. In short, the frost in the world began to melt and fly away. Mugui strengthened her and helped her speed up. 2 hours later, Mo Xuejiang opened his eyes. It's done. Except for the original ice cap on the earth. All the ice and snow caused by supernatural powers around the world were absorbed by her. Mugui patted her shoulder. Well done. Yin Lu had prepared the space portal over there, and they stepped in together. Through precise positioning, they landed next to the woman. Fu Xia had a lotus lantern floating in her hands. Her eyes slightly widened, and she seemed to be surprised that they found her location so quickly, and her first reaction was to run. But with so many people, how could she escape? Yi Hui controlled her body and strangled her to death. She fainted and lost consciousness, and was taken away by him. He showed no mercy. After all, there were many people who died in the ice just now. Qingjian, it's unnecessary to prepare so many people. She looks very weak. Mugui, but she has the ability to freeze the whole world. In an instant, they took her to the prison room of the superpowers. I thought she would be unconscious for a while. But unexpectedly, she woke up the next second after they arrived here. With her hands and feet tied, the lotus lantern appeared again. And above it, the dust-colored flames flickered. Seeing her cheeks tense, Yi Hui quickly tied her mouth to prevent her from committing suicide. She opened her mouth slightly, unable to move her body. The lamp burned vigorously, but she could do nothing. Hanishu said at this time, "Let me do it." Mugui also nodded. In this situation, asking questions seemed to be useless. Letting Hanishu directly pry into her memory would help her find out what happened faster. They would not have mercy on the enemy. Mugui called his name, and Hanishu landed and looked at Fuxia's unwilling eyes. Tears slid down from Fuxia's eyes, making the traces of the butterfly even more shiny. And her slightly trembling lips seemed to be making some incomprehensible lip movements. The flames of the lotus lanterns in the sky suddenly jumped to the ground. Hanishu's body suddenly froze. Not because of the tears or the flames. I can't spy on her memory. Mugui was also surprised by this result. Hanishu's mental power was so high that he could spy on and rewrite the memories of himself or the brainwashed. Hanishu shook his head. I don't know. I just can't do it, sorry. Mugui, it's okay. He asked Hanishu to go back first. Turned to Fuxia. And a strange look flashed in his eyes. Qingjian interrupted at this time. I think I know why. Mugui, what did you see? Qingjian said with shock. People who don't belong to this world. Who are rejected by this world, the Soul Lantern clan. Hearing these words, Fuxia's eyes burst out with more strong emotions. Resentment, obsession, anger, madness. Yi Hui narrowed his eyes. She seems to have a lot to say. Suddenly, a vast aurora spread out in the sky. Green and red flashed alternately and even merged. And then turned into blue and purple, changing frequently. The scene was thrilling. They woke up and started to act in the morning. But the sky on Golindan Island was not yet completely bright. In the dark, the brilliant aurora illuminated the world like daylight. Mugui looked up. Strong electromagnetic fluctuations outside the atmosphere. Something is approaching. Mugui turned to Fuxia. The woman was also looking at the sky. Her expression changed again. Now she looked as if she was ready to die. Her eyes were looking far away at a certain existence that was nowhere. Her lips were still trying to move, as if she was mumbling to herself. Mugui, Gray, let go of her mouth and listen to what she has to say. Yi Hui thought so too. At the same time he said it, he loosened the puppet thread to a certain extent. The woman's words came out, but it was a language they could not understand. The ancient pronunciation seemed to be reciting some poems. Mugui called Gu Shu, and Gu Shu shook his head in confusion. I don't understand. After she finished speaking, she looked at Mugui and others. Her watery eyes precipitated a deep will. This time she used a language they could understand. For our homeland. For our world. For my family. The tears on her face had not dried yet. She closed her eyes as if giving up all resistance. Mugue had been staring at her and saw this scene. And he had a bad feeling in his heart. And immediately shouted, "Dongqing. Gu Shu." Wang Dongqing didn't want her to run away, so he ran forward to pat her. But when he was less than half a meter away from her, he was suddenly flipped over by an invisible force. The same happened to the others. And even Yi Hui's puppet thread didn't stay on the woman. Gu Shu's consciousness flew away for a moment when he was flipped over. And he didn't have time to use his ability. Mugue, who was protected by Ingio, could still see her situation. Crack! The lotus lamp cracked a crack. Crack! Crack! More small cracks extended from the crack. Boom, boom, boom. For some reason, after the aurora, there was a heavy roar in the sky, like a force hitting the head. She wanted to commit suicide. Mugue understood Fuxia's intention. Ingio raised his hand with difficulty and pointed at the lotus lamp, as if he wanted to reverse the state of that thing, but failed. Mugue made sure that he did not blink. But the crack suddenly expanded 3 times. Gu Shu had come behind him and said, "It can't be stopped. This thing of hers will also crack in the time pause." Although Mugue relied on Ingio's barrier to avoid flying away in this extraordinary power, he could not advance an inch. Countless possibilities flashed through his mind, but none of them could stop the other party. Mugue couldn't figure out why this person was so determined to commit suicide here. He had encountered many situations that he couldn't understand before. Generally, there was only one fundamental reason for this situation. That is, he didn't understand the other party's past, because he didn't know the enemy's background, position, personality, and other information. He didn't know the motives of the other party's behavior. However, it doesn't matter if the other party just committed suicide. Not knowing the truth is not a bad thing for them. Mugue stared at her and her lamp. If you want to die, die quickly, no matter which world you are from. Don't harm the people in our world. But when the lotus lamp was only 1 step away from being completely shattered, a crystal floated out from the woman's chest. Gu Shu covered his chest and said to Mugue, "No, I can't get it." He tried to pause again to get the thing, but couldn't get it back. The transparent sky blue diamond crystal was not much different from the small ornaments sold in the market before. It just radiated something like a projection, which was the image of a man with unclear outlines. Fuxia looked at the man blankly. The man, who only projected his upper body, gently opened his arms and hugged Fuxia. He seemed to say something affectionate in their language. Fuxia's expression was touched. She closed her eyes and leaned in his arms. The man patted her back sideways, gently turned his eyes, and glanced at Mugue. There was no word. Mugue felt the murderous intent that was as real as flipping the top of his head. What you fear is what will come true. He laughed instead, but he felt that his expression should not be considered kind. A cloud with a light blue tint was released from the crystal, enveloping Fuxia. The space portal that Yanlu had opened at that time also broke outside the cloud. Mugue knew that they could not stop them from leaving, but there was not much panic on his face. He said to Fuxia, "Anchor point positioning." That's how they found her. Although she didn't know if the spell would work in another dimension or another body, Mugue was unwilling to let her go. It was just the right way to intimidate her. Sure enough, Fuxia had already accepted the rescue. When she heard this, she opened her eyes. Her eyes were bloodshot, but the cloud swallowed her in an instant. The diamond-shaped crystal that originally contained a sky lost all its colors and turned into a hollow transparent gray. It fell to the ground and broke into 2 pieces. Chapter 207 Alien Spaceship. The woman just disappeared out of thin air, just as she appeared out of thin air. Boom, boom, boom. The loud noise that overwhelmed everyone's head made it impossible to ignore, and they had to look up. The ship that broke through the gorgeous aurora and clouds was a black ship, because the distance was still far. The detailed appearance could not be seen clearly, but it was not the same as the aircraft carrier in the ocean. It was flying high in the sky, which reminded people of the starship in science fiction novels. Yihui called Yanlu, "Go back immediately." Mugue picked up the broken crystal and put it away. The group did not dare to delay and stepped into the space portal created by Yanlu. As expected, someone was waiting to notify them at the place where they originally set out. When they arrived at Lan Yuanqing, someone was already reporting to him. They all had incredible expressions on their faces. The unknown extraterrestrial flying body is currently changing speed and lowering altitude in the stratosphere. It is predicted that it will land near the sea. Where is the anti-stealth radar? It doesn't work. Signal? I haven't received it yet. What about sending a signal? I sent it. But I don't know if the other party's technology matches ours. Lan Yuanqing pressed his temple. Qing Jian aliens. His words pointed out the tacit guess in everyone's heart. Wang Dongqing was already sitting on the side, browsing the information with shining eyes. He said casually, doomsday, superpowers, prophecy, rebirth, another world. It's not surprising to have an alien again. Right? Mugui always felt that the thing came at a coincidence. And it seemed to be related to Fu Xia's sudden suicide. Although she did not succeed and was rescued. Gu Shu was suddenly patted on the shoulder by someone next to him. He turned around and it was Song Jiansheng. What's wrong? Song Jiansheng came close to his ear and whispered, those people have no ill intentions. Try to cooperate with them. Gu Shu had a good memory. And he understood instantly that it was the god of time and space. His first reaction was to raise his hand and shout, the god of time and space is here. Here. Other people's eyes were focused on him instantly. Song Jiansheng closed his eyes and leaned against him weakly. Gu Shu, hey! He was so angry that he put Song Jiansheng on the sofa and told Mugui and others what he had just said. Mugui was thinking, not knowing what to think. Yihui spread his hands, whether they have bad intentions or not. We have to welcome these VIPs. Don't we? Lan Yuanqing just finished the phone call and sighed, you guys follow me. Several captains were not present. But the captains present and Mugui were probably the highest combat power that the base could mobilize now. No one dared to underestimate this visitor whose civilization was obviously more developed than Earth's. The advanced observation team had been hovering not far from the starship in a helicopter. Because Lan Yuanqing had ordered not to attack at will. They did not take action. From the images they sent, they basically determined where they landed. And they relied on Yin Lu to move over. They landed on a nearby island and reef for observation. The ship seemed to adapt well after entering the water. It was an amphibious ship. Its volume was 10 times that of the world's largest aircraft carrier. Much larger than when it was seen from the sky. Of course, its structure was completely different from that of an aircraft carrier. It was a fully enclosed multi-layered ship-shaped spaceship. They waited for a while. And a structure in front of the ship was pushed out, revealing a plane with a scale pattern. According to common sense here, it seemed to be a runway or a deck. The door inside opened, and a group of people wearing helmets walked out. They were humanoid creatures like them. From the military high-powered scope, you can see the faces reflected under the transparent helmet surface. They are human no matter how you look at them. Lan Yuanqing, let's go! They passed through the portal, and came to the front of those aliens. The other party, a group of 5 people, seemed to raise their heads slightly because of their uninvited presence. The leader seemed to be a woman from the figure. And the clothes and coats were also normal. But it can be seen that the 5 of them did not expose an inch of skin. Under the coats and pants were complete jumpsuits. And their hands and feet were wrapped inside. The leader took out a cylindrical tool from the pocket of his backpack. The transparent liquid circulated inside. And after a while, it stabilized. The color changed and layered. Red, blue, purple, yellow, green. The amount of each color was different. She nodded and took off her helmet, and signaled others to do the same. The sea breeze blew, blowing away her long dark red hair. The woman had slightly dark skin and a pair of deep purple eyes. The lack of color was obviously natural, and the rest of her facial features were not much different from humans. She closed her eyes as if breathing the air here. Then she walked towards Mugui holding her helmet in one hand. And the people behind her followed. After just a few steps, it can be seen that this person has the character of a veteran soldier. Although her figure can be seen as a woman. She has firm and tight muscles that have been trained like a former gymnast. And her height is about 1.9 meters. Not very thin. And she feels very oppressive when approaching. She stood 1 meter away from them. Standing so close, Mugui could see clearly that her skin was a bit similar to that of the plateau people. A little dark and slightly red. She stretched out her hand and gently stroked the air in front of her at chest height. A vivid little person image appeared. And it seemed to be performing silent pantomime. And they were like watching a popular science animation with the sound turned off. She didn't wear any mechanical equipment. And no one knew where this holographic image came from. There was not even any scattered light and shadow. The holographic image modeling was clear and smooth from all angles. And it was lifelike. And the technical gap could be perfectly felt. The woman opened her mouth and spoke a language that they couldn't understand at all. and it didn't seem that she expected them to understand. But they did understand what she wanted to express through the little person image. Lan Yuanqing turned around. Wang Dongqing walked forward holding Ruby. Ruby raised her paw. There was a thick square terminal on the paw. The top cover opened, revealing the small interface inside. Wang Dongqing naturally couldn't hand over his terminal to the other party. This was one of the data storage disks. He said, language data. Currently only 130 language data are systematic. The woman looked at the small interface and fell into a brief silence. She pinched her chin and seemed to be thinking. After a while, she turned around and said something to the person behind her. And a short-haired man behind her took out a rectangular object from his pocket and handed it to her. She held the silver-blue object against the interface, and the blue light was projected on it. Then, in the surprised eyes of everyone, one end of the object began to decompose, turning into countless small pixel blocks, spreading, reconstructing, shrinking, and finally transformed into an adapter that matched the interface and pressed it in. Wang Dongqing's eyes flashed with strange light. It took only about 3 seconds for her to pull it out again, and the adapter turned into a rectangular strip again. She put it next to her ear, or to be more precise, on the earring. Soon, he threw it to the person behind him. Do you understand now? When the woman spoke, she quickly followed the translation, with almost no time difference. Lan Yuanqing nodded. Okay. The woman smiled and stretched out her hand to him. Linchula, director of the Space Administration, and the captain of the Inten Aero starship. The pronunciation of the word two in Linchula. There is no similar inflection in their language. Inten Aero. It was probably a transliteration, but the translation was so clear and fluent. It was very strange. Lan Yuanqing could only shake hands with her. Director of the Supernatural Disaster Management Bureau. Lan Yuanqing. Linchula let go of her hand and said, she looks like someone who can make sense. The environment of this life planet is very good, and the number of lives is large, and the quality is good. No wonder they chose this place. She didn't seem to mind that they brought so many people here, and she even looked up at the helicopter hovering overhead. It is estimated that they did not immediately launch an attack to test them or aim at them. So they said they were easy to talk to. Of course, if it were not for Gu Shu's reminder, there might really be a situation where a sniper rifle would be aimed at them. Lan Yuanqing. You landed on Earth? Even though Lan Yuanqing is more experienced, he has never had a diplomatic conversation with aliens, so he is a little unsure of the wording. Linchula, oh, we detected a large-scale space-time fluctuation at this point, and wondered if it was them. So we rushed over to take a look. This is another unregistered extraterritorial life planet. You said it was called Earth. What number is next to Earth? Earth 86. Type 1. Has not yet left level 1 civilization. The person behind her answered calmly. Yihui asked, does this number mean that there are many planets similar to ours? Linchula thought for a while and explained. The environments of life planets that can give birth to human-like intelligent life are generally similar, but the distance between them is too far. If the technological civilization has not developed to a certain level, it is impossible to contact each other. So it is generally a closed civilization form. In the languages of most human civilizations, if you reach the level of knowing the planets and interstellar stars, the name of the planet is generally Mother Planet or Earth. Anyway, it is almost the same as the meaning of Earth in your language system. And it is the same as ours. So we just unify the name. Of course, there are others, such as artificial stars, resource stars, tourist stars, etc. And the activity range basically does not go beyond the birth planet, which is the mother planet. Yihui smiled and said, it seems that you have already left your home planet. Lin Tula, well, my home planet has been destroyed, and all the resources have been exhausted. When I was a child, I went to live on the energy planet as an interstellar immigrant. My affairs don't matter. We are here to find traces of the Soul Lantern clan. The Soul Lantern clan is, have you seen the guys who like to kill people on a large scale? Mugui looked at Qin Qian and said, we have seen the Soul Lantern clan. Lin Tula, They said this because they knew for sure that the other party was from the Soul Lantern clan. She asked in confusion, how did you know for sure? Mugui spread out the diamond crystal she had obtained before, because we just faced her. And we have an identification person here, who can tell the other party's race. Qin Jian added, the Soul Lantern is not her ability, but her innate talent. Linchula was stunned when she saw the crystal. This is a crystal of time and space. I didn't expect to find it so quickly this time. Lan Yuanqing, it's not a good idea to talk here. Why don't we go to our side? Lynchula, I would like to invite you to visit the Atenero. Do you dare? Lan Yuanqing had no choice but to stop forcing her. She called out to the people inside, who brought out tables, chairs and stools. Let's talk here. I think we have a lot of information to share. Ruby pointed at those people and said, highly bionic intelligent robots number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Wang Dongqing also said, this biosimulation technology is really sophisticated. Ruby, learn it. Ruby, I can't scan it. Lynchula smiled generously. If you need technical information, I can give it to you. But I don't know if you have enough storage and matching technical tools. Wang Dongqing, it doesn't matter. Just give it to me. He was much more excited than usual. After everyone sat down, Mugue placed the broken crystal on the table. What is this? The current leader of the Soul Lantern clan created a crystal of time and space with his ability. It can take people through time and space, and can accurately locate a certain planet with life. This one has been used up and is useless. It is disposable. Lintula moved her eyes to his face and asked him, can we handle this? Mugue gestured, it is indeed waste. Please. He asked Qin Jian to take a look in advance. Lintula asked someone to put it away and asked directly, you said you met someone from the Soul Lantern clan? Wang Dongqing directly brought out the image for her to see. All the information about Fuxia. Lynchula read it carefully and praised, this is really a great help. Every piece of information about this race is extremely precious. Mugue pointed at the table, well, now it's your turn. What exactly is the Soul Lantern clan? A person suddenly approached behind Lynchula. She showed a surprised expression, turned back, and opened a holographic image in front of him. Mugue, the seed. Lynchula, you can recognize this. So it's correct. What about this? Another image appeared next to it, which was the image of a tree, with a leafless black trunk and branches, like a dead tree scorched by lightning. Although Mugue had never seen it, he could guess, the tree grown from the seed has not appeared yet. Lynchula, then there is still time. We must destroy it before it grows. Qin Jian couldn't help asking, what on earth is this? Lynchula said calmly, a level 1 designated dangerous isolated species. The soul-devouring tree. By the way, there are many variants of this thing. The characteristics of this one that landed in your world are still unclear. But from previous cases, once it grows up, it will devour organisms and create chimeras, or monsters, and then drive these monsters to collect more organisms as food. Anyway, only one can destroy a continent. On this planet, this amount is probably not enough for it to eat. Mugue frowned. Why did this thing appear on our planet? And what does it have to do with the Soul Lantern clan? Lynchula, it was born on the home planet of the Soul Lantern clan. Once. Mugue, I'd like to hear more about it. Lynchula thought for a moment. In fact, the history of the Soul Lantern clan would be very long to talk about. You only need to know that on the home planet of the Soul Lantern clan, a group of people conducted experiments and created a prototype of the soul-devouring tree. The leader of the Soul Lantern clan gave it the attributes of time and space, and let it wreak havoc on his home planet, destroying that planet. He killed almost all the creatures on it except the Soul Lantern clan, and fled to another time and space. After they escaped, we found that planet. But when we found it, the soul-eating trees were already mature. There was no food on this planet. So they crossed time and space and began to sow seeds. Not only here, but also in other time and space. It is even said that some species can transcend time, go back to the past, and go to the future. Unfortunately, we do not have the skills to travel through time. It is possible to go to the future according to the flow rate of space, but it is uncontrollable. We can only look for their traces on the linear timeline in our universe. The patriarch of the Soul Lantern clan should not be able to travel to the past. Mugue laughed sarcastically. In other words, we were struck by a disaster. Lynchula, it's unlucky, but it's true. Ihue, then what about the woman who wants to freeze our world? When they showed her the video footage of Fuxia, they also briefly told her about what Fuxia had done. Lynchula, this is related to the characteristics of the Soul Lamp clan. Everyone in their tribe has a soul lamp of their own. They have it since birth, and some awaken later. They also have a unique talent. For example, their clan leader is related to time and space. And this woman is Rampage. Mugue, however, She uses the ability of Rampage to make creatures with ice powers go into a rampage state and freeze the whole world. In a way, it is a bit like his enhancement. But her side seems uncontrollable. And, no matter how powerful the ice-mutant creatures are, they can't freeze the whole world in a rampage state. The world would have been sealed long ago. Lynchula looked at his expression with appreciation. Your brain works very quickly. The Soul Lantern clan's own talents are not that strong. They are at a low level. And their lifespan is not that long. Under normal circumstances, no one can live past 40 years old. However, when a certain condition is added, they will become stronger endlessly. Life, Mugue whispered. Right. The more accurate answer should be soul. By plundering the souls of other lives, especially the souls of intelligent lives, they can strengthen their talents and do many things that they could not do before. Their lifespan can be increased by absorbing the souls and vitality of life. Unlimited. Of course, when they are over 40 years old, they can't survive if they don't plunder lives. I don't know how many lives are needed to create a crystal that can travel through time and space. It is said that they will also lock these souls in the lamp and burn them endlessly, so that they will never be reborn, so as to gain more power from resentment and despair. Everyone was in disbelief when they heard such things. Mugue, it is said that. Where did you get this information? Lynchula looked into Mugue's eyes seriously. You are very good at guessing. But you are only half right. Mugue. Lynchula. The Soul Lantern clan did not kill all the people in the soul world except their own people, but took some away. However, our news did come from a person from the Soul Lantern clan. She turned her head to look at a short-haired boy with a hood on her left, who did not look up. One person betrayed the Soul Lantern clan and escaped with several time and space crystals. Later, we rescued him. Mugue, why did you take some people away? According to her, the people of the Soul Lantern clan should hate people other than their own. Lynchula, it's for the continuation of the race. Mugue was stunned. Lynchula, the Soul Lantern clan is not linked by blood. On the contrary, there are very few people who have a true biological genetic relationship. They are randomly born in various soul clans. From the past to the present, they have never been cut off. So, Mugue understood it after saying this. Those who were taken away by him were probably used to continue the bloodline, and were kept in captivity for the birth of the Soul Lantern clan. Hui, then why do they send people to harvest souls in different time and space? It can't be to run around in different spaces. Right? Lynchula, it's convenient to talk to smart people. According to their clan leader, they want to create their own world. Mugue, why? And is it possible? Lynchula, in theory. As long as their clan leader is still there, and obtains enough souls and lives, it can be done. It's easy to imagine that it must be a terrifying number. As for why, they destroyed their home planet. They no longer belong to any world. They are rejected by all worlds. No matter where they escape to. No matter how they transform the planet. They can't survive. They have to endure the pain of being tortured and their souls burned every minute and every second on all planets, civilizations, and worlds. As long as they are still alive. This is the price they pay for plundering lives. This explains everything, including what Fuxia said before leaving. Mugue laughed in anger. Just for this reason. They suffered so much. So many people died, and tried reincarnation several times before they turned the situation around and destroyed their originally peaceful world. Lynchula, oh, by the way, many of you have superpowers. Right? Yes. That shouldn't be brought by the soul-devouring tree. She overturned their research and speculation in one fell swoop. Lynchula, how could an alien object that broke in from another world give you the power to resist? It came here to grow and eat you. And of course the weaker you are, the better it eats. This is indeed reasonable. Lynchula, according to the planets I have visited, some of the natives of the planets also gain strange powers at a certain period of time. And each world has an invisible mysterious force that maintains the balance of the planet's ecology to prevent it from being destroyed. We call this kind of thing the will of the planet. And some civilizations call it God. You can produce superpowers, which is probably the planet's resistance to foreign objects. It also wants to protect itself and the creatures living in it. So it began to evolve. But in the process of rapid evolution, there should be some individuals who can't hold on. And many of you should have died because of this. Right? She got it all right. Jean Mo held his head. I received scientific education since childhood. Ah! Jean Jian, Why are you still talking nonsense now? Gu Shu showed a relieved expression. Sure enough, our world is protected by the goddess. Lynchula, even if there are gods, the planets will still be destroyed when they are supposed to be destroyed. No matter which planets, stars, galaxies, or star clusters. Human civilization is just one of the smallest existences in the universe. Mugui smiled and lowered her head. We can only struggle desperately to survive in our limited time. Right. Lynchula smiled knowingly. That's it. But then she changed her tone, however. What the Soul Lanterns did has exceeded the ordinary interstellar crimes. We can't just sit back and watch them. So we have been trying to track their traces. But we have been unable to find any clues. Some civilizations have either been destroyed, or only a few survivors are left. We currently speculate that among the 10 civilizations with traces of the Soul Lanterns, only 2 have successfully saved themselves, and the others have been completely destroyed. When we arrived, it was too late. Oh, you are the third one. I really admire you. Not only were you not completely destroyed, but you forced her into death. Mugui, I just don't understand. She could have used the time-space crystal to escape directly. So why did she ask for death? Lynchula narrowed her eyes and held her chin with the back of her hands. You should have an idea. You just want to confirm it. Right? The Soul Lantern clan is very loyal to their leader. For so long, only one person has defected. And he still feels a certain guilt towards the leader himself. If this woman escapes, it will harm the Soul Lantern clan. And she would rather commit suicide. Or, Mugui continued, she saw you coming. Do you have a way to track them using traces through the time-space crystal? Lynchula smiled mysteriously, and did not comment. Chapter 2081 Step Away. On the protruding deck of the Inting Aero, they had been chatting for a long time. There was only a not-so-strong sea breeze around them, and the rumble of helicopters was overhead. Mugui had figured out why Hanishu had never seen these aliens 7 times before. In the previous 7 times, this woman should have died in an accident. So there was no trace of tracking. The 8th time, Feng Yan reached a cooperation with her. So she had the opportunity to do these things. Mugui said, in that case, let's talk about cooperation. Lynchula raised her eyebrows. Cooperation? Mugui smiled faintly. I don't know how you tracked her. But every time it was too late. Wasn't it? Even if you can track which space they went to. That place is also a big world. It will be troublesome for you to find people. Right? Lynchula, do you have a way? Mugui, it's just a wedge. Lynchula, oh? Mugui raised her hand slightly, dialed a communication, and set it to public. Brother Mu? Feng Shidong's voice came from it. Mugui asked, take a look at the anchor mark on Fuxia. Feng Shidong, oh. Okay. I'll be right there. After a while, he replied, it disappeared. Mugui's expression did not change but continued to ask. Then try to mark something else and see if the anchor position of Fuxia is vacant. Feng Shitong. You mean, well, I'll try. Soon, he replied. The position is not vacant. It is the same as the situation at Fengyan. But her existence is temporarily hidden. Mugui got the answer he wanted. And the smile on his mouth deepened. He said, okay. I will contact you if there is anything. Okay. The expressions of the people behind Mugui also changed one by one. They all understood the meaning of Mugui's move. Lynchula, what is this? Mugui, someone on our side marked Fuxia's position. And this mark has not really disappeared. The reason why it is not visible now is that she does not exist here. The distance is too far, which is roughly equivalent to the disappearance of existence. But if you take him to the space where Fuxia is to look for her, he will probably be able to locate her exact location directly. But I can't guarantee it 100%. But there is a high probability that it can be done. Lynchula's eyes burst into light. She closed her mouth and thought for a moment. And said, let's confirm that what you said is true. Mugui spread her hands. Whatever. How do you want to confirm? Lynchula threw an oval earphone over. Put this on and say what you just said again. Although the people around her were worried, Mugui chose to believe the alien in front of her, and did as she was told. A green light came out from the headset. Mugui took it off and threw it back. Lynchula smiled and said, thank you very much. Actually, we have a lot of things to talk about. We must confirm your trust in us. Otherwise many things cannot be carried out. You didn't lie just now. This matter is a huge step forward in capturing the Soul Lantern clan. If possible, we would like to borrow that person from you. Mugui, I just informed you of this. But whether he is willing to go with you is your business. If you want to borrow someone, you must convince him in person. If he is unwilling to go, we will not let him go. Lintula smiled confidently. It's just persuasion. As long as it succeeds, you will let him go with us to catch people. Right? Mugue looked at Lan Yuanqing. And he nodded, yes. Lintula, okay. She asked again, your request is probably to let us help you deal with the seeds of the soul-eating tree. Right? Mugue didn't say they had a solution, but asked, do you have one? Lintula, we have a way to find the location of each soul-devouring tree seed. As for the solution, the energy of the star is enough to destroy the soul-devouring tree seeds. Then she saw Mugue and others fall into an unspeakable silence. Mugue, we have already found the location. And as for the method of destruction, we have also thought of it. Then he repeated their method. Lintula, it makes sense. Since it has been solved, it doesn't matter. Mugue thought about it carefully and felt that this cooperation was a loss. Lintula looked at him and laughed. Every time we go to each planet, we are not for profit. Even if you don't propose cooperation, we will help you if we can. In fact, we are not a law enforcement agency. Regarding the Soul Lantern clan, many interstellar federations and interstellar empires have issued wanted orders and asked us for help. We have taken in several survivors of the planets destroyed by the Soul Lantern clan and formed a team eager for revenge. So we have been pursuing them. Our main business is not this. Jean Mo pulled his lips. Avengers? Lintula, oh, this name sounds very appropriate. But it's not called this. They are the Special Case Pursuit Team under the Space-Time Administration. Mugue asked, what is your main business? Lintula said in a slightly formal tone. The predecessor of the Space-Time Administration was the Interstellar Joint Exploration Team. We are currently an independent organization and do not belong to any alliance or country. Our main functions are to find and register new life planets, expand the territory of human exploration of the stars, record some civilizations and creatures that have been destroyed or are still alive, and draw interstellar charts. However, during the journey, we always encounter some things that we have to take care of, plus the things of the Soul Lantern clan. So it later became the Space-Time Administration. In principle, we do not participate in any political struggles between national interstellar alliances, but when faced with non-political and inhumane serious acts of destructive behavior between the stars, such as the destruction of civilization, we will take action. Jean Mo whispered. He's pretty handsome. Lintula, then you need to make a decision. We will mark the location of your planet and record it in the currently known interstellar map. But this also means that your existence will be known to many interstellar alliances and countries. Although this place is still far away, and it is not easy to get here, it is not impossible to get here with the level of technology there. Do you know what this means? Mugue frowned. He didn't think of this for a while. Lintula crossed her arms. Another option is that we hide the mark of your planet and keep it in our own records. But we won't make it public. Generally, we will do this when we encounter planets with lower civilization levels, but have reached a certain level. This is also to protect these low-level civilizations. But similarly, we will not tell you any information about those civilizations that have developed to the galaxy level. You can think about it carefully before deciding. Mugue felt that their approach was full of goodwill. If it were him, he would definitely choose to hide it. They themselves are now in a state of difficulty, and it will probably take a long time for them to develop to the level of being able to travel in space. But this matter is not something that he alone, or even a country, can decide. And he also knows that Lintula said this out of goodwill. They have information and technology, and it is easy to conceal this matter and pass on the news. So there is no need to worry that they will regret it later. The fact that they can travel in the universe also proves their strength. They will not be destroyed so easily, and let other beings take away their information. Lan Yuanqing nodded solemnly. I will be responsible for discussing this matter with the people above. Thank you for giving us the choice. Lintula, don't be too nervous. We have no intention of interfering in the affairs of your planet. So the decision is in your hands. We will fully respect your choice. She paused and said, there is one more thing. In the worlds that the Soul Lantern clan has passed through, once they fail, they will not return to that world. They will directly give up plundering the lives of that world. The two worlds that successfully saved themselves prove this point. But the two Soul Lantern clan members were killed by them. So our clues are broken, which is a bit of a pity. Mugue heaved a sigh of relief. Indeed, this approach is cautious enough. But even if they come again, they are not afraid. Lynchula's attitude relaxed a little. In fact, we still have something to ask you. We want to stay on this planet for a while. One is that our people need to rest, and the other is to collect various biological, environmental, and civilization information. I hope you can give some cooperation and help. After all, with the help of the indigenous people, it will be much easier to do anything. Mugue nodded, of course. Lynchula rolled her eyes slightly and said in a teasing tone, I haven't met such reasonable aboriginals like you for a long time. Generally speaking, when we come down like this, most aboriginals don't want to talk to us first but shoot us in the head. So we encounter all kinds of troubles every time we land. Not to mention the subsequent mutual help. I didn't expect you to trust us so much. Of course, we really don't have any bad intentions. Mugue stood up, and the corners of his mouth slowly raised a little arc. He stretched out his hand and let her look at the many people behind him. Of course we are also vigilant. But we are still here. The reason why they are not afraid is because they have the confidence to fight with them. Lynchula laughed. I underestimated you. So it's good. I am not a person who likes fighting. It's best to solve everything through conversation. She stood up. Then, since the deal has been settled, you go back first, and we will go up to pick up the people. Mugue, pick someone up? Lynchula, this is just one of the subships of the Intanero. And of course, it is also part of the main ship. We just formed an advanced team to investigate the situation first, because we don't know what the situation is on this planet. Our main ship is now parked in the satellite orbit. As for why they didn't detect it, the result is also very obvious. With the other party's technological dimensionality reduction level, it is easy not to let them find out. Lynchula still didn't say everything. The Intanero was once a battleship, and its combat power was also one of the best in the highest level interstellar alliances they had seen. It was not difficult to destroy 1 or 2 planets with life. But if they said this, it would only scare them. So they didn't need to say it, and they had no intention of starting a war. Mugue looked at her deeply, understood her hidden meaning, and said nothing more. Of course, they didn't say that they had Xingjian, who could identify lies. Trust requires a certain amount of confidence and evidence. During the stay, our starship will be replenished with energy. Come down to replenish energy? No. The energy on Earth cannot support the interstellar travel of a starship. You haven't yet created a device that can stably control nuclear fusion. Right? We will use stars. That is, your sun, to replenish energy. Of course, your star will not be destroyed after replenishment. So don't worry. Okay. After finding a place to settle Lynchula and her people, Mugue and others, together with several captains, began the journey of collecting soul-eating tree seeds. Before they knew the origin of the soul-devouring tree, they could leave the seeds of other countries alone and let them deal with them by themselves. Once they knew the seriousness of its harm, he had to take away all the seeds, not leaving any behind. However, this matter was destined to be full of obstacles and dangers. Jean Imo also advised Mugue, Uncle, there is still so much time. It doesn't matter if you slow down a little. Mugue was very decisive and urgent. What if it's advanced again? Since there is a way, we must deal with it as soon as possible. In fact, what he was thinking in his heart was, if he worked slowly for another 10 years, when would he be able to retire? Mugue had made up his mind, and his current efforts were for his future stable retirement life. And he was just one step away. He himself did not expect that this would take a year. Chapter 209 Welcome Home. October 14th, 2062. Yen Lu, Zhang Yi, Mugue, Gu Shu, and others, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, began to send the collected seeds into the space portal in batches. This process took them 3 full days. At about 4 o'clock in the morning of the 4th day, the sky was just about to brighten. With the confirmation of the inting arrow, the last batch was also sent into the solar furnace. At this point, the seeds of the soul-devouring trees around the world were destroyed. Successful. Lynchula smiled and told Mugue the result. Mugue smiled, closed his eyes, and fell forward. Mugue! Gu Shu beside him quickly grabbed him. His friends also rushed to his side. Yihui asked about his condition and laughed. Jean Imo, why suddenly? Yihui, he didn't faint. He fell asleep. He turned Mugue over to show them that his breathing was even. And he fell asleep in seconds, sleeping very sweetly. The people around him looked at him and laughed. Yin Xinqiu squatted down and gently touched his hair. He has been tensing himself up. And it will be like this when he relaxes. He has worked hard in the past 2 years. This year, the vitality of each base has gradually recovered. Every major disaster has been overcome. This time it is really over. Mugui has nothing to do anymore. Mugui slept for 12 hours at a time before waking up. Yin Xinqiu stayed by his side to take care of him. When Mugui woke up, his eyes were still blank. He ate, took a bath, and was in a daze for a while. When it got dark, he went to bed again. This situation lasted for 7 days. Even the most careless people could sense that something was wrong. Yin Xinqiu gently woke up Mugui on the bed. Mugui squinted his eyes and barely saw him clearly, and said in a daze, "I want to sleep a little longer." "Wait a minute." Yin Xinqiu gently patted his face. "Mugui, are you sure you still want to sleep?" Mugui thought for a while. He seemed to be dreaming just now. He dreamed that he woke up and didn't see anyone around him. And there were ghosts. So he knew he was dreaming. Look! Now he wakes up. Yin Xinqiu and other ghosts are staying by his side. So he can continue to sleep peacefully. He would have many dreams. And even dreams within dreams. But it didn't matter. They were just dreams. When he woke up, he could see that the world had changed. And none of the people he loved were dead. And he could finally rest. In this case, it didn't matter how long he slept. With a peaceful heart, he closed his eyes again. However, he didn't see the deep worry in Yin Xinqiu's and the 8 ghosts' eyes. Yin Xinqiu seemed to have no way to deal with him. So he made a phone call and said to Mugui, "Then you go to sleep first. I'll go out for a while. This time I may be out for a long time. There is food in the refrigerator. Remember to cheer up after you get up. And don't fall asleep again before I come back." Hearing this, Mugui stretched out his hand and grabbed his sleeve. His eyes narrowed into a slit. That was because he was sleepy. He felt like his eyelids were weighed down by 1,000 pounds. And he needed a lot of strength to open them. Yin Xinqiu gently took his hand off and placed it on the quilt. Mugui exhaled, no longer resisting the sleepiness, and fell asleep again. About 10 hours later, Mugui woke up. He got up and opened the curtains. It was afternoon, and the sky was not very dark. He took out the food from the refrigerator, heated it up and ate it simply. He emptied his mind. After a long time, he thought about checking the time and found that the watch on his wrist was gone. Yin Xinqiu took it away. Mugui thought it didn't matter. He could take it if he wanted. It wouldn't matter. He still lived in the dormitory. After eating and washing dishes, he didn't know what to do. The temporary dormitory certainly didn't have such good conditions, and there was no terminal or TV to watch. His only watch was taken away by Yin Xinqiu. Now he didn't need to train, go on missions, or travel around the world. He found that he really had nothing to do. He sat by the window for a while and began to feel sleepy again. But after squinting for a while, he remembered what Yin Xinqiu said before he went out, that he had to stay awake and wait for him to come back. But where did Yin Xinqiu go? When would she come back? She didn't tell him either. Thinking of this, Mugui's heart tightened, and he subconsciously raised his hand. The watch was gone. He stood up and walked to the door. He opened the door. Outside was the empty corridor of the dormitory. Today was a working day, so it was rare to stay in the dormitory. Mugui closed the door and paced around the room. I still need my own house. He had been sleeping so much these days that he lost track of time. He should have officially retired now. But he had never been in service. If he wants to rest, he can rest. No one can stop him. Then as a benefit for doing so many things, he can always ask for a house. Right? There will always be benefits after retirement. Right? Mugui knocked his head. He was indeed sleepless. These things have not been negotiated yet. He decided to go out and ask Lan Yuanxing for money. No, to ask for his fair compensation. Lan Yuanxing was a reasonable person, and he would soften his heart if he said a few more words, and would give anything, especially now that the situation was just right. However, just as he went out, Mugui remembered that he still had to wait for Yin Xinqiu. So he gritted his teeth and retreated. He waited for about 2 hours. He couldn't wait any longer. He was not such an obedient person. If he wanted to see him, he would go find him himself. Mugui went to Hui's office first, but couldn't find anyone. He asked the staff, and they said he had gone out for something. So he simply borrowed someone else's watch to dial their number. But none of them got through. If one of them did this, it could be considered a coincidence. But if all of them did this, it could only mean that they were hiding something from him. Mugui guessed this. But he didn't think it was a bad thing. And he guessed that they wanted him to find it after he woke up. But the base in Beijing was not small. How could he find them? The answer was simple. Just track and locate. Although he couldn't operate it himself like Wang Dongqing, he could ask the technicians to find someone to locate the position of the watch for him. As for the authority, he only needed to ask Lan Yuanqing for one. Lan Yuanqing called him verbally, and he successfully found their location. But he was very busy, and before he could say anything, he hung up and was called to a meeting. As he guessed, a group of people gathered there. It was one of the buildings outside the residential area with a better location, which used to be a villa area. The villa complex that seemed to never be full in the city that used to stay is now also a distributed asset. Mugui didn't know if his brain had been sleeping for a while. On the way there, he couldn't figure out what they wanted to do when they gathered there. But their move did succeed in getting him out of his comfortable bed. Mugui took a military vehicle and landed to find the place. The villa was very big. Too big. It was considered large in the whole villa complex. About the size of a small concert hall. It should have been rebuilt by demolishing the old house. There were pools, small golf courses, and garden greenhouses around. And the luxury was overwhelming. A series of question marks appeared in Mugui's head. But if you ask him if he wants to live in such a house, he will definitely shake his head. Living alone in a house like this? Cleaning it up would kill someone. When he was at the door, the security guard used a machine to scan him and let him in. From some details, Mugui could tell that the security guard was a superpower. Yes, there should be some important people living in this villa area. How could they protect the residents in this world without some ability? After Mugui entered, he became more and more curious about what they were doing. Did they form a group and book the villa for a party? It seems that they are not the kind of people who like to play normally. Mugui walked over. The first floor of the villa was surrounded by tempered glass, so it was very clear to see inside. There was no one. He pushed the door open casually. Bang! Then, he was covered in fresh rose petals. Congratulations. Congratulations. Housewarming. Ha ha ha. Jean Mo couldn't help laughing at Mugui, who looked confused and had a pile of petals on his head. Qing Jian turned his head. I said there were too many petals. Don't you believe me? Yihui smiled. Not too many. Just enough to bury him. Feng Boming picked up some from the ground and sprinkled it on his head. His smile was brighter than the sunflowers in the summer. Mugui couldn't help but reach out to touch his face. How childish. Wang Dongqing poked his head out from behind the camera and smiled. Mugui wiped his face, a little speechless that he would be fooled by such a trick one day. What he saw from the outside should be a projection. It was too realistic and flawless. It was completely indistinguishable. Mugui stepped on the rose petals and walked in. You came here for this? Yan Xinqiu walked up to him, brushed the petals off his hair, and smiled at him. Yihui smiled and explained, Yan contacted me, and I contacted everyone. He said you might need a house, and asked us to work together to find a house for you. So we chose this place. You have slept for so long, and this is the only way to attract you. The Sleeping Beauty. Mugui looked around after entering. It can be seen that it is decorated with care, and the atmosphere is warm, not as cold and luxurious as it looks from the outside. Of course, the area is still very large. Mugui, you mean well. But I'm alone. He stopped. Yihui knew that he had seen through it. This was not a decoration for living alone. He raised the corner of his lips. Who said this is for you to live alone? Mugui didn't know how to respond to this. In this moment of daze, the two boys rushed to his side together. Their height was now enough to reach his chest, and they hugged his waist like children. Ai Buji raised her cute and delicate face like a fawn, and asked him with a pitiful expression, Brother, I have a question. You must answer it well. Ai Chinqian suppressed his laughter and said in a pinched voice, Brother Mu, if you can't answer, you will be punished. Mugui lowered his head. Ai Buji, what day is today? Ai Chinqian, you only have one chance. Think about it. Ai Buji, if you can't answer, we will ignore you for a month. Ai Chinqian, a month is a bit long. Change to a week. Ai Buji, it doesn't matter. I will definitely answer it. What do you think? Brother? Mugui was stunned for a long time. Jean Mo deliberately shouted, "Oh no! Can't you really answer it?" "Ai Chinchien, impossible." "Shut up." Mugui slowly reached out and touched the heads of the two children, and said in a hoarse voice, "Today is October 25th. Your birthdays. Not the day they were adopted, but their real birthdays." "Ai Bougie, yeah. I knew it." "Ai Chinchien, of course." Mugui picked up the two children and threw them up, making them scream. He caught them and said, "Are you here to celebrate your birthdays today?" Ai Bougie put her arms around his neck and whispered in his ear with a smile, "So, today we are the birthday boys. You have to promise us anything." Mugui asked, "What is it?" Ai Chinchien and Ai Bougie blurted out, "From now on, we will live in this house together." Mugui froze. Ai Bougie jumped down, "Of course. It's not just us." Yin Sishi stood up. "You should still remember the agreement we made before. Right?" Mugui certainly remembered, but they had never been able to fulfill that promise. Yin Sishi's smile was no longer gloomy, although it's a little late. "I want to fulfill my promise." Mugui had never seen him smile like this before. Jean Mo quickly jumped out. "And me. I want to live here too. You are my uncle, and it's only natural for me to live in my uncle's house." His demeanor left Mugui speechless. Angjio raised his hand casually. "I have also booked a room here. Although I may not stay here for a long time in the future, I will definitely live here if I come back. This is the best location we carefully selected. Such a big house with complete facilities can't be wasted." She is still so practical. But it's probably not all sincere. Lei Chun, and me. My sister kicked me out and said she didn't want to live with me. Qing Jian, you came here because you don't have to buy a house yourself. Right? Lei Chun just threw it out. "Yeah. Is it okay?" Lei Chun's mood. For some reason, he could understand it very well. Even his dead fish eyes felt particularly friendly. Gu Shu raised Song Jianqing's hand as well. "And us." He smiled and said, "We only know you here, so we still want to live together in the future. And if there is anything, we can notify you in time." Song Jianqing also said, "My family members are used to living in Jinqing and don't want to come here. It's convenient for me to go back to see them, so I still live here. I also want to find a job here to settle down and live a good life. It's really reassuring to have familiar people. Gu Shu, I like to live with a big family. It's lively, and everyone is close in age. Right?" The reason is too good to refute. Xiao Qiutian lowered his head. His ears turned red as if he was a little embarrassed. He stuttered, "So, I don't know if I can have a place in this house." Has his personality changed? Why? Yihui took over the conversation. "Don't look at him like that. He has already chosen a room and put his luggage in." Xiao Qiutian immediately looked over, and when he turned to Mugui, he stuttered again. "You should have chosen first. If you want to change later, no one will refuse." Mugui felt that she didn't have so many requirements for the room. Yihui pointed at herself with a playful smile. "You didn't expect it. I don't have a house yet. I have always lived in the office and dormitory, and I always feel uncomfortable. This opportunity is just right. And I am also applying for early retirement. Now I am in a fierce battle with the upper game. Look forward to my good news." Why does he feel refreshed as if he has finally paid off his debts? He looks like he has given up all the burdens. Feng Boming said to him, "Our house is only 2 minutes away from here. You can come over for a walk after dinner. You can also come to my house often. We have reserved a room for you to sleep in. Of course, if 9 or 10 people come at once, we can only sleep on the floor." Qing Jian, don't look at me. I don't live here. I live with my parents. But my workplace is not far from here. It's okay to come and play from time to time. Jean Mo, now Tsundere is out of favor. Qing Jian secretly stepped on his foot, but he dodged it in a mean way. Jean Mo hid behind Mugui. Wang Dongqing, I renovated the basement, and no one can enter there except me. I have severe social anxiety. Who are you kidding? Yihui added. Jin Chang'an said he lives with his brother, but it's very close here, and he will come to play often. Mugui has been listening to them talking, and she almost didn't interrupt. Yin Xinqiu said gently, but in the end, this is the house you choose. You decide whether you want to live together. If he doesn't agree, doesn't that mean he'll kick everyone out? Is this a threat? Everyone looked at him with a smile. The pressure is great. Mugui sighed softly. Do I have any choice? Besides, AI Buji and AI Chinchian also said before that it was their birthday today, and he had to agree to anything. This was a conspiracy he couldn't refuse. Jin Mo and AI Buji cheered in advance. Yan Xinqiu, would you like to see your room? He stretched out his hand and led him upstairs. Mugui was almost pushed upstairs by the people behind him. Even though there were many rooms, it didn't seem crowded, and his room didn't take up a large area. The door is like an ordinary dormitory. Mugui felt a little ridiculous. It was unheard of that the owner of such a big house only had such a small space. But it was not a very unpleasant feeling. Yan Xinqiu pushed the door open for him. Mugui's breath froze instantly. Yihui, Yan said he wanted to decorate it this way anyway. Mugui? Yan Xinqiu, I thought you might hate it. But at that time, I just need to renovate it. Just think of it as my selfishness. That was the room he lived in when he was a child. In Han Ishu's home. He once said that he would set up a similar room for him when he grew up. His own. All designed for him in the software. And restored exactly as it is now. A single room suitable for him to live in when he was young. Yan Xinqiu looked at him without saying anything. Mugui raised her hand to her mouth. Sorry. I don't know what to say. Yan Xinqiu smiled. That's okay. I'll ask and you'll answer. Do you like it? Mugui nodded. His answer was the same as the first time. Both times he gave a sincere answer. I like it. I like everything you choose for me. Yihui, it seems that you are very satisfied. You are so moved that you are about to cry. Mugui was helpless. Are you addicted to tormenting me today? Qin Jian, it's still early. According to their arrangement, you can't sleep today. You have to stay up all night. Mugui, but today is Bai Ji and Chinqian's birthday. If you want to play, you should have fun. After all, you are still young. Ingjiu, have you forgotten that you are only 22 years old? Mugui, I don't want to calculate my mental age. Let me go. When there are too many people, the noise starts. When Mugui went downstairs, he noticed something and asked Yan Xinqiu, brother, where is your room? The laughter and noise stopped abruptly, as if the pause button was pressed. Even Yihui was looking at Yan Xinqiu. Yan Xinqiu's eyes moved slightly to the side, and he said after a while, I never thought of living here. The smile on Mugui's face disappeared, and he said expressionlessly, why? Yan Xinqiu's smile was mixed with a little bitterness. It's just that I think if I'm here, you will feel uncomfortable. Mugui glanced at Han Ishu who was covering his eyes and couldn't see, and he suddenly smiled. You are lying. Yan Xinqiu looked over and stared into his eyes. Mugui, I hope there is a place for you in this house. It's not too late to fulfill your words now. After a long pause, Yan Xinqiu finally answered, okay. His hands were shaking, and his eyes were actually a little red. Only the two of them knew the weight of this sentence. Jin Mo muttered to break the heavy atmosphere, the only one who took the initiative to bring it up. Yihui, what? Are you jealous? Jin Mo mechanically answered, no. AI Buji pulled him, hurry up. The cake is ready, and we have to eat it. They held a lively birthday party for the twins on the first floor and played many games. Mugui seemed to be beaten back to her original clumsy self, and she was often at a loss. So she was often teased by them. They were so drunk that their faces turned red. The adults drank and got high, and fell down one after another. The minors played until they couldn't open their eyes, and lay on the sofa. They said they would stay up all night, and when the sky was light, only 3 people were left standing. Yihui raised his glass, and clinked it with Mugui. Mugui, how long will it take you to finish this little bit of wine? He could see that out of professional habit, he was secretly hiding and sipping wine. But he urged others to drink, induced others, and was committed to getting others drunk. Yihui, it's a professional habit. Can I also drink a lot of wine? He said, and finished a glass directly. Without blushing, he raised the empty wine glass, turned the glass around between his slender fingers, and landed steadily on the table. There is no way. We have done alcohol tolerance training. No matter how much we drink, we will not get drunk. Mugui also hoped to get drunk, but his body was too good at drinking. Yihui suddenly said to him, I asked Yan why he did this. He meant the plan to force him to live in such a big house, and let everyone live together. It is indeed not something a normal person can think of. Yihui, he said, because you are a child who is afraid of loneliness just like him. The wine glass in Mugui's hand slipped, and fell to the ground and broke. Fortunately, There was no wine in it. Ihui continued as if he didn't see it. He said Xiaogui is a child who deserves to be wrapped in love. And it should always be like this. So, he forced you to come here. He knew you wouldn't refuse. You need a home. He wanted to give you a home. This is your home. Mugui. Welcome home. Mugui squatted down, trying to pick up the fragments, but saw his own tears on the fragments. They were broken together in the blurred vision. Mugui closed his eyes. Both his eye sockets and nose were equally sour and uncontrollable. Don't touch. Yen Xinxiu's voice came, grabbing his hand and helping him up. Seeing Mugui's face, he turned to Ihui helplessly. Don't do this. Ihui shrugged and brought them 2 coats. Let's go out for a walk. Then he rolled up his sleeves, forced out a gentlemanly smile, and began to clean up the mess. Autumn is coming. The air in the early morning is slightly cold. The sky is a dark blue that has not yet faded from black. And the moonlight is a little bright. The boundary between the two is ambiguous. Yen Xinxiu took Mugui's hand and went to the riverside walkway next to the villa complex. It was Yen Xinxiu who broke the peace first. He shook their hands slightly and smiled a little embarrassedly. It reminds me of the feeling of holding your hand to go to school when I was a child. You were very small at that time. But now you are so big. It feels a little strange. Would you be unhappy? Mugui answered him by holding his hand tightly. Yen Xinxiu, well, there are many things I want to say. Where should I start? He said. Suddenly stopped and looked at Mugui. Their eyes met. Yen Xinxiu said, Mugui, you saved the world. But there is still one person who needs your help. Mugui tentatively replied, you? Yen Xinxiu laughed and poked his chest with his finger. It's you. Mugui showed a blank expression. Yen Xinxiu, in the end. I am still a psychological problem. You have a big problem. But you don't notice it yourself. I have to tell you. Mugui didn't know what he was talking about. Yen Xinxiu, how about I become your exclusive psychologist in the future? Mugui. I can. Yen Xinxiu, this doesn't mean that I don't have any problems. We all have issues that need to be solved. I know my own problems. Let's talk about yours first. Mugui. Suddenly a little nervous? Yen Xinxiu, you haven't decided what to do in the future. Mugui, nothing? After all, he has retired. Why would he bother to find trouble? Yen Xinxiu's face was very calm. That's impossible. Apart from eating, drinking and sleeping. Have you ever thought about what to do? Have you ever thought about what you like? Mugui. He couldn't answer. His mind was blank. He likes a peaceful life. Owning a house. Retiring. Enjoying a good life. Sleeping until he wakes up naturally. Playing games. Visiting parks. Eating. Drinking and having fun. He can no longer say these words. Because? Yen Xinxiu, that's someone else's idea. Not yours. He can see through it. Yen Xinxiu, you just want everyone to live and bring peace to the world. And then what? Xiaogui, you have always been trying to do something for others. And found an excuse to do it for yourself. But that is not your true path. Mugui, I don't know. Most people may have dreams. Career plans. Things they want to do. And hobbies they are particularly passionate about. But he doesn't have any. He doesn't even know how to have fun. To be honest, the long study life has made him completely forget how to have fun. He can be regarded as chewing straw paper when learning those test knowledge. He can't swallow it. Although his grades are okay. He knows that he doesn't like studying. Similarly, what he learned from Ihui is not what he likes. But it is necessary to protect himself and survive. He has been struggling to survive all his life. And he seems to have never really enjoyed life. Nor does he know what he really wants to do. It took all his energy to keep most people alive. But after he succeeded, he didn't know what to do. The owner of this body should like painting very much. The studio in his original house, and the marks on his hands all prove this. Jean Imo also told him that he likes to stay in the studio all day and even forget to eat and sleep. Sometimes he does envy this kind of people. They know their way forward and do what they want to do regardless of everything. He has nothing. Because life has made him lower his expectations and kill his desires from a very early time. After getting a little, he desperately guards the slightest condition that can make him live better. No matter what they ask him to do, he will do it. No requirements. No expectations. But everything is too good for him at that time. He didn't think about the future. Mugui asked, I need to study. How can I rest? Yen Xinxiu smiled. It's actually very tiring to do nothing. Mugue, you come to help me. You come to be my exclusive psychologist? Yen Shinshio, well, this is what I want to do. Mugue, you study this major because... Yen Shinshio, part of it is because of you. But I study this because I like this line. And I have a certain sense of professional responsibility. I like my profession. Mugue, Yen Shinshio, you become reserved in front of me now. And your personality is similar to that of your childhood. I just said that you might not be willing to see me. Not because I was angry. But you will definitely think of all the things in the past when you see me. This is a fact. Psychological trauma is like this. Mugue, then you are the same. Yen Shinshio turned his face and raised the corner of his mouth. Yes. But you are the type who, after knowing it, does not escape, but actively faces and overcomes it. So he decided to talk to him clearly. Because if he didn't, he would subconsciously avoid the conversation. Mugue remembered that Hanishu had given him psychological counseling in his first life. And he had been avoiding it. Now it seems that he has really put up a thick line of defense. Mugue also smiled and assured him, I won't do it again in the future. Yen Shinshio, it's good to say. But you have to do it. This is also his habit. When he was very young, he used this method to encourage him to find himself. Mugue suddenly realized that he had really learned a lot from him. Mugue asked seriously this time, what exactly do I want to do? Yen Shinshio thought for a moment. Start from the most basic? He took out a notebook from his pocket and wrote on it. It was an old-fashioned way. But he was used to writing on paper by hand. After writing, he handed it to Mugue. I have listed a few things I think you can try to do. Or things I hope you will do. Mugue took it and read it. 1. Don't say sorry to me again. 2. Cry when you want to cry. 3. Laugh when you want to laugh. 4. Eat well. Go to bed early, and get up early. 5. Try everything. It's what he wants him to do. And it's what he does for himself. They are all very simple things. But, Mugue, it's very difficult. This, Yen Shinshio, it takes a long time to do it. Don't you want to do it? Then just cross out what you don't want to do. And then you don't have to do it again. Write down what you want to do. Mugue moved the pen. No. I just think it's good and I want to do it. Yen Shinshio, I will accompany you. Mugue, why does it sound like you will accompany me for the rest of my life? Yen Shinshio, do you feel burdened? Mugue, no. Brother. Thank you. Yen Shinshio smiled and said, this is what I want to do. Exclusive psychologist. The price is very expensive. Mugue, I didn't stop you from taking other orders. Yen Shinshio, my energy is limited. And it is enough to take care of you. This is what I promised you. I have owed it for too long. And I have to pay it back. He promised him that he would let him grow up in happiness like an ordinary child. Now, it is much too late. But he can still do it. Mugue raised the corner of his mouth slightly. Do you think I only smile when I want to smile now? Yen Shinshio looked at him for a while. And also curved her eyes and said, yes. They walked quietly for a long time. Yen Shinshio, then do you know what my topic is? Mugue. It's me. Leading me is your topic. Yen Shinshio seemed to be laughing easily. But what he said was very serious. Yes. You guessed it. It seems that we both have a long topic to solve. Over the long time, Mugue has become an obsession for him. He had the idea of getting involved in this profession because of him. And he formally studied this profession in order to get rid of mental illness. In the end, he also needed to rely on this, leaving him, so that he could return to himself. True love for the people around you should not mean sacrificing yourself. And both of them agree on this. Of course, the most critical problem is that he doesn't want to do this from the bottom of his heart. And leaving refers to psychological strength dependence, not just distance. So he needs to rely on Mugue's strength. They need to help each other. Mugue, you said that, which makes me a little uncomfortable. Well, don't be angry. I will feel bad. Is there a way to solve it without leaving? Then let's look for it together. Slowly. Don't rush. We will find it eventually. They walked and walked until they reached the end of the road. They looked up and saw the first rays of sunlight at dawn pouring down from the side of the mountain. Unknowingly, the long night passed. Mugue stood there, watching the light covering the entire sky in an instant. The warmth falling on the skin. The warmth of the person in the palm of the hand. The refreshing morning breeze with the scent of dew. It was only then Then he finally felt reality. Everyone survived, including himself. No more terrifying enemies were targeting them. The world was no longer destroyed. It was a long, long journey. He gained and lost, and finally regained it. Finally, he had a home he had always dreamed of. No matter how long he had been wandering, he still found his home. A place to go back to. The home he wanted to go back to. The people he cherished were right beside him. In that home. There, he would try to slowly prepare for a more distant future. Mugue suddenly turned his head and looked at Yin Xinqiu. Brother, let's go home. Yin Xinqiu smiled and replied, okay.